The young lady still remembers that day. It was a perfectly ordinary day, and there was nothing special about it. It was sunny and windy as usual, one of countless days spent working in the grass fields. Then a voice accompanied by a bright light rang out and asked if the girl was Lottie Pion. The young lady replied that yes, indeed, she was. But when she looked up, she thought it couldn't be. The creature told the girl that it would give her a task, and the young lady understands that if she had not listened to that voice and had run away, her life could have been peaceful. God exists in this world, and He performs miracles and also cares for it. And alongside the main God, there are 12 more gods. Countless people have received messages from God through priests, but since she was one of those who don't believe this thought it had nothing to do with God. And now the girl is wondering if he's really decided to contact her personally. The creature tells the young lady to prepare the elixir of immortality for the gods. The girl with a trembling voice asks what kind of elixir it is, and then wonders why the beans are an elixir of immortality. The creature claims that he knows that it is impossible to create it, even if he spends his whole life on it, so he will give the young lady a new life. The main character is then a little surprised, and the god puts a mark on her forehead and says that if she succeeds in preparing the elixir, then she will be worshipped throughout her life, and even the gods will recognize her, because he will put her in the place of one of the 12 gods. The main character is then a little surprised and thinks that she is sure of what he said. A new life means that she will study attraction until she falls into a crippling sleep, and even after that. The young lady then agreed and claimed that she would make him an elixir, but she thinks she was just as naive then. She accepted God's offer and thus began her new life. She was having problems with one guy. She also studied herbalism for a very long time. Thanks to this research, her herbalism has made phenomenal progress. After this guy fell into eternal sleep less than a year later in the body of a 3-year-old baby. It was only when the girl became older that she was able to restore her memories. And now the young lady understands that she should have known she would screw up, and the age at which people regain their memories and the reincarnation cycle were random. And what's more, now the girl is screaming why herbalism regresses with each reincarnation. She also understands that in this life, it is necessary to develop a cure for hair loss. In her first life, the girl became a goblin and only screamed what kind of curse this was. In the second life, the traumatic still did not keep up with her progress. And in the fourth life, a dragon came to her and they became friends after sharing a drink. In her fifth life, the girl was finally born a long liver. That is a mermaid. But she still did not understand how one could study traumatic events underwater. It also turned out she wasn't a good singer. In her seventh life, she fell into an eternal sleep as soon as her memories returned, because the Demon King had killed everyone. In her eighth life, the girl was born an elf and understood that if she took good care of you, she could easily live for 1,000 years. But just 10 years after her memories of her past life returned, she fell ill and fell into an eternal sleep. And this is the disease that elves suffer from. In her ninth life, the girl realized that she had finally prepared the elixir, and it was imperfect but good enough to present to the gods. However, God claimed that this was not bad, but in order to rise to the position of a god, a perfect elixir was needed. The young lady was a little surprised then, and claimed that this was all she could do, and she asked to be allowed to choose her next life. God replied that this was impossible, but He would send her directly to the next life. The main character then wondered what this was, and whether it was really a portal to the underworld. She also wondered if she could simply hit the one He had given her. And now the girl remembers moments from her past lives, and also understands that she has been reborn again. But above her is the same sky as when she first met God. Young ladies also think that the gods are behind these clouds, and the young lady wonders if they will sit there drinking the elixir she has prepared. But she also thinks that she will again plunge into eternal sleep, after which the young lady immediately starts running, and one of the knights asks where she is running. However, the little girl only climbs the stairs and then enters one of the rooms, and then he cries out to tell all the gods and all the people in this world that she, Lottie Pion, is going on strike from this reincarnation. The girl also understands that she is now honestly tired, so she screams that she doesn't want to work. Then the young lady heads down the hallway and says that first she needs to look at this body. The girl also wonders how old she is, 13 or 14, and also wonders if she will remember later. But when the young lady looks at herself in the mirror, she says that it looks quite cute. However, now the young lady coughs and looks at her hand and sees that there is red liquid there, after which she examines the body and thinks, what the hell happened and why doesn't it hurt anywhere? Because if this is so, then it means it's a lung disease. The girl also understands that this body has a limited lifespan, and she is like a fish. Well, the young lady still thinks that it's not a big deal and that she can prolong her life in other ways because it's just a matter of time. Also, if she becomes a level 8 wizard, her lifespan will increase, but that requires mana, and the girl still thinks it's okay to become a sword master. It could also be a spiritual kinship or divine power. However, the young lady has none of these. At that moment, a knight bursts into the room and cries out to the princess. The young lady is then shocked, wondering what he just said. And is she really a princess? The man says that the young lady is there, and he's been looking for her. And the main character understands that this is the emblem of the kingdom of Pandarion, and wonders if he is a knight of the kingdom of Pandarion. The man replies that everything is correct, and the young lady says that he called her princess, and that means she's the princess of this kingdom. The young man is a little surprised, but answers yes. And after this, the main character just smirks and realizes that she thought she had nothing. But it turns out she has power and money, and this place has existed for more than 1,000 years, and she is the princess of the great kingdom of Pandarion. And that means she has a lot of money. My body isn't functioning well, so I still have to work and I can just prolong my life with expensive elixirs. After which, the young lady turns to the knight and says that she is tired and also asks him, take her to her chambers. However, when the main character enters the room, she is very surprised, and he wonders if she really belongs to the princess. But no matter how you look at it, it looks like a prison. The knight at this time claims that this is a prison, but also that this is the room of Her Royal Highness, Princess Lottie. The young lady then realizes that in this life, her name is also Lottie, after which she claims that she seems to have memory problems. And the girl asks if she is the king's illegitimate daughter, or the daughter of his second wife, and the knight replies that she is not. After which, the girl claims that she must have done something wrong, to which the knight again replies that she hasn't. Her Royal Highness was also arrested for attempting to poison Her Majesty the former queen. The main character is then shocked and wonders what he said. A short time later, the knight is already gone, and the young lady left alone thinks, what the hell is this? And she tried so hard every time. And in return, the princess is terminally ill, has no talent, and is in prison. But the good news is, she escaped while she was out for a walk, and under those circumstances, she could have fallen into eternal sleep and been reborn. But she declared that she would no longer make the elixir. This means that after falling into eternal sleep, inevitable karma awaits her, so she will have to look for another way out of this situation. The girl also understands that first, she needs to clear her head, after which she goes to the bucket, where there should be water. But he sees that she's not there. After that, he sees spirits all over again, and wonders if it's really true that the spirits in the form of drops haven't been asking you all this time if the girl can see them. The young lady realizes she can't summon powerful spirits, but spirits of that level are easily summoned. One of the spirits claims to sense the energy of the Spirit King, after which he asks if the girl has signed a contract, to which she replies that this is true, and she has signed a contract with the fourth Spirit King. The girl realizes that in her previous reincarnations, she met the fourth spirit and signed a contract. A spiritual contract is a contract with the soul, so it can summon the Spirit King, but if it remains in this body, it will fall into eternal sleep. At this time, the two droplets claim that they understand. And although the girl is a human, she is still a contractor of the fourth king, after which they also ask if the girl is a traveler. And the main character says that she is more of a tramp and asks if they could bring her some water so she can wash her face. The girl understands that the spirits and some intelligent beings who knew her identity called her a companion. And then two spirits bring water and also ask if this is enough, and if this water is clean enough. The young lady then washes herself and realizes that usually, when she indulges in memories, she mentally returns to her past incarnations. She needs to go to the Cranus Forest located in the center of the continent. Thousands of monsters live there, as well as orcs, trolls, and even dragons, and in the middle of it all is her tower. This is her heavenly laboratory, where dangerous experiments do not cause any problems. And not far from her rare herbs grew. But the problem was that if she continued to live in this body, she would fall into eternal sleep. So first she needs to stay there for a while. And in any case, she was caught trying to poison the wife of the former king. And the young lady wonders how she is still alive. And it is a miracle that she was not executed without trial. Now the girl is wondering why they put her into this crippling sleep. Just then the door to the room opens, and someone addresses the young lady as a mudblood. It turns out to be a young man with red eyes and black hair, and also asks if the girl said that she lost her memory base, for which he only laughs and says that the mudblood lost her memory. The young man also asks if she thought that if she put the queen into eternal sleep, she would hide her dirty blood. The girl is a little surprised after this, and the young man just cries out whether she is listening to him. The main character then replies with a smile on her face that no, and she is not listening, and the young men ask, how dare she say such a thing? The girl is just interested in who he is, and the guy knows that she has lost her memory. Lottie also guesses who he might be, and the young man then claims that he is in front of her. The second prince of the Pandarion royal family, Arkan, stands there. The main character is silent for a moment after this, but then she says it's fine and addresses Akron by name. The young man then cries out for the girl to call him Prince Akron. The main character wonders why she needs this, but when she looks at the guy, she thinks what's wrong with him. She also understands very well what her life was like here, and that the girl was subjected to bullying by her family. And because of this, the public began to repay them in kind. Now the main character lies there, sighs, and then turns to Arkan, and also to ask if he wants her to call him Prince. But she tried to put the queen into eternal sleep. So let the young man tell her what happened, and she thinks that her memory will return if he tells about it. The guy then thinks that the young lady has changed, after which he hesitates a little, but still claims that Her Majesty fainted when the girl was drinking tea alone. The inspector said what was in the tea which the girl gave to Her Majesty, and the maid showed what kind of tea they brewed. So now the young man points his finger at her and claims that this means the young lady is guilty and asks if she understands. After this, the girl only smiles and thanks Arkan, and the young man only cries out whether she even heard what he just said. The main character understands that this was obvious, and the power as well as the abilities, and the reason why the princess with poor health tried to plunge the queen into eternal sleep. But none of that matters because the accusations are false. Now the young lady claims she needs to go somewhere. She also claims that she has a lot of work, so she has to go. However, the knight shouts for the princess to wait, but then someone else runs to her. It turns out to be a prince, and he stands in front of the young lady and also screams that no. He also claims that a criminal should not be allowed to leave prison so easily. The knight claims the king told him that if the girl runs away again, she will fall into eternal sleep. The young man says that this is precisely why he tells the girl to return quickly. Lottie thinks it's sweet that he's trying so hard, but it's no use, so she tells Arkan to calm down. She also claims that she wants to take a walk, and that this is a privilege of being a member of the royal family of Pandarion. The two are then a little surprised, and the young lady claims that even if a member of the royal family commits a crime, then he can go out with an escort and be in a certain area. One of the servants replies that the girl is right, and such a privilege exists, but the prince asks why he didn't know about it. The girl claims that she is usually accompanied by vassals or relatives, but she's nothing to him. The young man hesitates a bit, but still grabs the girl's hand. And he also says that there's nothing to worry about. One of the servants then turns to His Majesty and tells him to wait for him. Well then, the young man suddenly stops and cries out whether he is really her escort, and the girl wonders if it has just dawned on him. A little while later, the king is already interested in what the guy wanted to say. And the girl steps forward, and the boy understands that this is not usually how a parent looks at their child. At this time, the man turns to Arkan and asks what he was thinking when he brought the criminal there. The young man then becomes very nervous and tries to tell His Majesty the great king something. However, the main character stops the boy and asks him not to blame His Highness Prince Arkan, because it was she who asked him. The man then asks if she asked, and the girl claims that she just wants to clear her name. The king then claims that he heard the girl had lost her memory and asks how she is going to prove that she was unfairly accused. And the main character thinks that this is not how a conversation between a father and daughter should be, but the fact that he did not ignore it is a good sign. However, the girl then remembers something and realizes that talking to the king will be a problem. And she can't be wrong, but while her life is in danger, she will leave it for later. Now, the young lady claims she has one request. The boy then turns to her, a little worried, and asks what she wants to say. And the young lady then comes even closer and states that it will not take much time. And if His Majesty allows her to meet with the former queen, then she will prove that she was framed. The king then claims that Her Majesty the Queen is in very poor condition, and he asks if the girl really wants him to take her to the queen, after which he says that this criminal should be immediately put in prison. However, the main character only claims that 1 hour will be enough to clear her name. The prince then whispers to himself whether she has gone crazy, because if something goes wrong, she will fall into a crippled sleep. However, the girl tells him not to worry. The king then agrees, and the main character smiles, and also understands that often, of course, it will not be enough, but she will manage. However, then the man claims that he is only giving her 30 minutes, and the girl is shocked. Could it really be that God who did all this, after which the young lady heads to the queen's room? And he sees her lying in bed, in poor condition. The young lady also realizes that her condition is worse than she thought, and her breathing is very weak. But this is not due to her age. And it's not poison, and if it's not him, then the woman ate something wrong, and the tea leaves that she gave. They were popular in the capital, and there was nothing special about them. The girl claims there was no poison in the tea, but she was still kept under surveillance. And one of the servants claims that only 2 days have passed since they received the results. The girl also asks if they checked other foods that Her Majesty was eating at the time, and the man claims that she fainted after drinking the tea. But no poison was found in either the tea or the cup. The protagonist then wonders what the cause is and whether she's missed something. But then the girl suddenly remembers something and wonders if that's really true. A little while later, the two spirits say the young lady was right, and there was no problem with the tea. The protagonist then says fine, and she thanks them for their help and also understands that this was to be expected, because she turned out to be right. But the problem is different. At this point, someone announces that time is up and asks if the princess has checked what she wanted. The girl tells them to come in. Then the king and his 2 wards enter the room, the protagonist watching as one of them smirks. She wonders who it is, and she doesn't think that this guy is a knight or a servant. At this time, he sits down at the table and says that the girl can begin to agree to what the young lady, and says that, as far as he knows, the problem is not in the tea and in the water. The man says that's impossible and that the water came from a spring, but the young lady understands that it came from a spring created by fairies, and that this water gives energy to whoever drinks it. And it is spring water that enhances the taste of dishes, after which he claims that all members of the royal family drink this water and use it in cooking. And besides, why did only the empress suffer? The main character says that she will check, and this water is not for people with poor health. And the problem arose because tea leaves were boiled in this water. The girl understands that this water does not go well with the tea leaves, and the queen is one of the people with poor health in the palace. At this time, the man asks if the girl wants to say that the problem is in the spring water, and the main character says that this is true. The king then turns to the butler and asks if there is any tea left in the palace. The man replies that yes, and new tea was recently delivered, after which the king says that they should brew tea with water from the spring. A little while later, the tea is already being poured with hot water, and the main character realizes that she is ready to prove her innocence. Well, to do this, someone must drink it, after which someone addresses His Highness. And he apologizes, but claims that it is not easy to prove that the problem lies in mixing the products, and it will take a long time. And besides, he thinks Her Highness should drink the tea herself. The main character is silent for a moment after that, and she also understands that on the one hand, she is closest to the queen in terms of health. But on the other hand, this man is forcing her to do this, and the girl is thinking whether to refuse or have a drink. The king claims that this is not necessary, which surprises the two. The man insists he'll try the tea. At that moment, another servant approaches the king and asks him to do the same. They don't even know how to cure it. However, the king replies that they don't and says he'll try himself. He also thinks the princess knows a cure. The main character only smirks after this, and he claims that this is true, and the man asks Marquis Floyd if this is enough. The Marquis replies, "Of course," and then just get angry. The young lady looks at the man, and he also wonders whether it seemed to her, or whether he looks angry, after which His Majesty takes the tea in his hands, and he drinks it. Then he puts the mug on the table and is silent for a moment, after which he states that yes, and he feels something strange, but it's not enough to make him lose consciousness. The main character says that, of course, that's true. After all, it is all because of the big difference in age and physical condition of His Majesty and the former queen. And this is the reason for the different symptoms. And in His Majesty's case, there will only be a slight pain in the stomach. The man says that just like then, he claims that he asks her about the queen, after which he wonders if the reason for such a grave condition lies in her venerable age. The girl replies that no, and rather that the treatment method is incorrect, since prescriptions for medications are still in use. They prescribed it based on poisoning. And as His Majesty understands, if they give me the medicine, the patient's condition will worsen. After which, the king turns to the chamberlain and orders him to schedule a repeat examination, as well as to find out the recipe for the correct medicine from the princess and prepare it. The man then replies that it will be done, and the main character understands that all charges are finally dropped. This means she will return to a room with good furniture and will eat, sleep, and play well, and then eat again and repeat everything else. The girl understands that the king might want to reward her, and then he wonders what she could ask of him. Well, then someone turns to the princess, and when the girl looks a little higher, she sees His Majesty in front of her, who says that he has a question. The little girl wonders when he came, but claims that she is listening to His Majesty, and the man asks who gave her such knowledge, and also, could it really have been her? The young lady then wonders the same thing he says, and the man once again asks if the girl received this knowledge from her, after which the young lady claims that she studied on her own. You man just closes your eyes and sighs. He also claims that the baby must be tired, and then he'll go. A short time later, the young lady arrives at Her Majesty's palace, and the main character looking at this building thinks it's a palace, but understands that the building seems to be strong. After which, the girl looks at the garden around her and wonders why it is in such a deplorable state. And when she goes inside, the girl realizes that all the furniture can break at any moment, and this is strange because she feels both good and bad at the same time. And it looks like a dollhouse with a beautiful layout. A little while later, a servant leads the girl to the princess's room, and the young lady understands that the room is a bit small for a princess, but still very cozy. Although compared to her prison room, this is much better. The young lady turns to the servant. She apologizes and asks how many people are assigned to her. The young man replies that he only knows of one maid. And at that very moment, someone's footsteps are heard. The main character turns around and wonders who it is, after which he sees a maid who turns to the princess with tears in her eyes. The servant says that this is the princess's personal maid, and then asks to be allowed to take his leave. The maid then, with tears in her eyes, claims that she knew that the mistress was not capable of such a thing, but they did not believe her. The young lady wonders if this is her personal maid and tries to calm her down. The girl then claims that she is very glad that the lady has returned, and that she was so worried. But she asks Miss Lottie, why was she completely silent today? Of course, she is usually a man of few words, but something has changed. The main character is then a little surprised, and asks if this is really true, and also wonders if they are closer in this life. The girl also understands that in fact, she should remember about this life, but now her head is empty. Therefore, she claims that in fact, she has lost her memory and does not remember anything at all, and also understands that this is her chance to find out everything. The maid then asks in shock if the mistress has really lost her memory, after which everyone will pay for it, and also asks if this is all because of her. And this is because she was unable to pass on the medication for daily administration. After which, his girlfriend falls to the floor, apologizes, and claims that she should have taken care of it. But the main character grabs her hands and screams that it is not Betty's fault, and it is just an accident. So let the girl not blame herself. The maid then tries to object and also asserts that in the palace she is the only maid there, are only the two of them. The main character looking at the maid understands that apparently they were closer than she thought, and she thought frivolously that the loss of memory would not bother anyone. However, now the girl is only hugging the maid, and she apologizes for scaring her, and that it is not Betty's fault. And the girl also claims that if the maid becomes calmer, then let her help her regain her memories. After all, Betty is the only one she can trust. The maid then smiles sincerely, and she says she will help the lady, after which she tells the story. And to summarize, the young lady is 15 years old, and Betty is the same age as her. The crown prince stands over her, and Crown Princess Akron is below. And from the story, it's clear that there's a war for the throne between the crown prince and crown princess. This is all because they're the same age and both exceptionally talented. For example, Akron is a little inferior to them in qualities, and this child is better than she thought. But now the young lady is wondering why everyone hates her, because if we talk about her, there is nothing outstanding. However, the maid then claims that in fact the mistress is Her Majesty's child, and the main character is shocked and also claims that she heard that she is not illegitimate. The maid officially claims that the mistress is His Majesty's child, and that 10 years ago he brought her to the palace and declared her his daughter. However, Her Majesty accepted her as her own child, and the main character now thinks that this is the end. And everything is ruined, and if even Betty knows about it, then absolutely everyone knows about it. The young lady also remembers how the king asked if she had given this knowledge about the girl, and understands that he must have been talking about her real mother. And now she even understands why the queen and others hate her, but she wonders why the king adopted her. The maid at this time turns to Miss Lottie and says that this is not the most important thing now, and the young lady is only interested in whether there might be something that might surprise her more. Betty claims that they don't have a single piece of food left, so all they can do is starve. The main character is then shocked and wonders if this is all real, and the girl claims that there are some sprouted potatoes left and asks whether she should cook them for dinner. After this, the main character says that she would not like to, and suggests that the maid take a rest because she will find some food. Betty then says that no, and if she asks to work in another palace, then they will have some money. However, the main character says that this is not necessary. Well, then someone bursts into the room, and when the young lady turns around, she sees the prince there. The young man is only interested in why it is so dirty there, and the main character thinks that he should sympathize with them. A little while later, they are already sitting at a luxurious table and eating. The maid says it's incredibly delicious, and the heroine agrees. Meanwhile, the prince asks if there are no cooks in the palace. And are they starving? The maid tells the master no, and they're not starving. They've simply not eaten for several days. The young man then insists that this is what constitutes starvation. The main character asks why Arkin came. The young man then looks away and says it just happened, and he was worried. Lottie asks if everything is really like this, and the young man, embarrassed, cries out that everything is wrong and he wasn't worried after all. The main character wonders if this is true and claims that she was worried about him, after which the young man is surprised and asks if this is true, and also if she was worried. The girl replies that she had to leave quickly, so they didn't even talk, and she was afraid the king would punish the boy. The young man then asserts that she's in no position to worry about him so much, and the main character just thinks how cute he is. But then the main character notices that something strange, and looking closer at the young man's hand, he realizes that there is a fresh burn mark there. That same evening, the young lady thinks about what she saw today and understands that if the young man were at least a little older, she would not have been so worried. And frankly, she was always aloof because she drew boundaries between family and friends, because this was the only way I could fully immerse myself in science. But small children are excluded, and they are the only ones who desperately need help. Therefore, she will help him, and the girl also thinks that the main thing is for her not to fall into eternal sleep. At this moment, someone turns to Miss Lottie and tells her that it is time for her to get ready. Lottie says that yes, and they need to get ready, and the maid asks where they are going. The main character claims she'll need to clean. A short time later, the girl is completely exhausted. He claims that they have finally arrived and thinks that she almost went crazy on the way. The maid then asks if this is really the prince's palace, and the girl replies that she will need to do something there. At that moment, someone turns to Princess Lottie and apologizes for meeting her so late. This turns out to be one of the words and claims that he will lead the lady into the living room, to which the girl agrees. A little while later, the young lady is already drinking tea, and the man claims that he brought her what the princess asked for, to which the girl thanks him. The servant hands over a list of servants' maids and other staff, as well as everyone who works in Her Majesty's palace. The main character realizes that there are many oddities in her palace, and firstly, there are actually many rooms in the palace, but only a few are used. the dining room is off limits, and the other open rooms are completely bare of furniture. And secondly, there are practically no products, and the quality of those that are available is very poor. Usually, considerable sums of money are allocated to maintain the status of the imperial family, but the girl wonders where all her budget goes. The main character examines the scroll with the workers, then hands it to Betty and tells her to take it. The girl then thanks the servant and also states that she would like to personally thank the prince. However, the man claims that, unfortunately, he is currently having his morning lesson. The main character asks what kind of lesson it is, and the man replies that it is world history. The young lady understands that it is not surprising that a teacher was invited for the young prince, but something is not right there, and the girl then asks if she can attend this lesson. Well, the man replies that unfortunately, he is afraid it will be difficult to do, and also the Viscount does not like guests in his lessons, after which the young lady says that this is understandable and nothing can be done. The girl also asks if she could get some more food, because she will return everything when she gets money for next month. The man insists that everything is fine, and they live to help others, after which he asks if the princess is looking for anything specific. The young lady says she doesn't even know, after which she turns to Betty and asks if she can check. After which the main character pulls the maid closer to her and whispers to her to stall for time because she needs to find out something. Betty replies that she will try, and a little while later, the main character is already walking with another maid and also tells Betty that they will see each other later. The young lady looks around the palace and realizes that her intuition tells her something. Akron's burns are somehow related to these lessons because she recently began to sense spirit energy. But then the girl suddenly stops and the maid asks, "Her Highness, what happened?" The main character claims that she needs to go to the restroom, and the maid says that she will show her there. However, the girl immediately jumps up from her seat, after which the maid screams for the mistress to wait. However, the princess already opens the door to one of the rooms and sees that it seems to be all on fire. There, the young lady also sees the prince, who looks at her, and the teacher in shock. He uses this firepower. Akron asks what the girl is doing there, and the main character has a smirk on her face. She says it doesn't look like a restroom. She also tells Akron that she was told there was a history lesson going on there, after which she comes closer to the man and asks if he thinks there aren't enough books for the lesson. She also asks if this man is Viscount Polton, and he tells the princess that this is true. The young lady then understands that everything is as she thought, because there she feels the energy of the spirit. And a Viscount is a guardian of the spirit. To become one must not only have the ability to see spirits, but possessing magic is a prerequisite. One must be born with both qualities. The treasures of this gift have led to many swindlers. Previously, there was no way to increase the connection with the spirit in any way, but scammers have succeeded in this matter, and it's clear this refers to Akron's forces. The Viscount was simply addressing His Highness and asking if he could bring this fire closer to him. The young man looked at all this with a little surprise, and the man only claimed that this way the prince would naturally increase his connection with the spirit. He also claimed with a smile on his face that he was not talking about ordinary fire, but about the invocation of the spirit of fire. The young man then asked if his father would look at him if he could use this fire and become a guardian. The man replied that of course he did, and said so that His Highness would believe him, after which the boy extended his hand toward the fire. But now he's screaming at the girl to get away, and he asks how she dared to come to him. Lottie apologizes and says she'll go, but first, she apologizes to Viscount Polton and also claims that she was too rude. Lottie also extends her hand and asks if he can forgive her for her rudeness. The man with a smile on his face replies that of course, and even though the girl's apology is so-so, but it must have something to do with the fact that she spent a lot of time in prison, after which the Viscount claims that he accepts her apology. However, the girl immediately grabs his hand. Then he squeezes her tightly and begins to use his magic. The Viscount feels intense pain and then falls to his knees. And looking at the princess, he thinks how she can possess such powerful strength since he made a contract with a mid-level spirit. The girl understands that it is difficult for a guardian who has entered into a contract with a mid-level spirit to resist her power. And she is the person who made a contract with the Spirit King. The boy turns to the Viscount and asks if he's all right. Well, when she looks at the man, she sees that he's already passed out. Meanwhile, the main character turns to Akron. and she says it's impossible to increase the bond by exposing oneself to the spirit of fire. The young man then asks how she knows, and the girl replies that it's a classic scam. And this man deceived Akron and took advantage of his despair. The boy cries out that this can't be true. After all, this man said that if he connects himself with the spirit of fire, he will gain a connection with Celeste, who is a mid-level spirit of fire. And the boy claims that then he too will be recognized, after which he begins to cry. And he cries out that he wants to be recognized. The girl is a little surprised by this, then moves closer to the young man, and she hugs him, and also states that it is not necessary to receive recognition, so he should not even think about it. Lottie also claims he's amazing in his own right, and asks if he understands. The young woman understands that there's no need to follow a path that doesn't suit you, and that you can find another way. That road that will be fun and interesting, but now drops of red liquid are dripping onto the floor, after which the main character realizes in shock that this red liquid is coming out of her nose. Then the girl faints. The young man is very surprised and cries out the girl's name. A little while later, the main character opens her eyes and sees Betty. The maid asks if her mistress has finally opened her eyes, and he also wonders if Lottie even understands how worried she was, because the lady suddenly fell, and she didn't regain consciousness for 2 days. The main character, then shocked, asks if she really slept for 2 days, and also realizes that she lost consciousness after only a slight effort. The girl also notices that this room is too luxurious, and she has not been there before, after which she asks where they are. Well, then someone claims this is his room. The young lady then sees the prince. She then turns to the maid and asks if she'll step out for a minute. Betty replies that she will, and she'll take care of business. The main character turns to Akron and asks if he's okay. He replies that he is, and the girl asks what happened to the Viscount. The prince replies that he was fired. Lottie argues that he deserves public punishment, and he wondered if the prince was going to tell His Majesty about this. However, the young man insisted that he would. If he tells His Majesty about this, he will look like a real fool, and his brother and sister will not communicate with him, so everyone will be irritated when they find out he's been deceived. The main character then watches silently as the young man cries. Then she turns to him and points to the bed, inviting him to sit down. The guy does so, and the main character comes a little closer to him and claims that he did nothing wrong. And people can make mistakes, and little children do it even more often, and it's not their fault. After all, the boy was trying to find an answer. The young man then says that he is so lonely, and the girl replies that everything is fine because she will be next to him in her thoughts. The young lady adds that she will worry about him and also praise him, and sometimes she will hug him like this. The young man realizes at this time that he has never felt such warmth, and he was just angry, after which the guy apologizes for laughing at the mudblood. And the girl claims that he is just a baby, so there is nothing to worry about. And then the young man asks, "What is she talking about? He's 10 years old." The main character then looks a little surprised and asks if he's really 10 years old. And after that, the guy just gets angry and screams at her to stay there until she gets stronger. Then the young man leaves the room, and the main character realizes that he looks much younger. Well, he wonders if it's just outside. At that moment, someone knocks on the door, and the princess tells him to come in. It turns out it's the servant who said the master was having history lessons. The young lady then asks why he lied to her. The man apologizes and claims he'll accept any punishment. The girl insists she'll ask the question differently, and he wonders why he didn't tell His Majesty, and Akron, of course, crossed the line. But it was necessary to inform the king about this. The servant then asserts that, in fact, he asked for an audience with His Majesty many times, but was always refused. The young lady then asks if he could not notify the queen or her maid, but he does not answer that Her Majesty was traveling through the provinces, and the maid was plunged into a crippled sleep. The girl understands that the relationship in this family is very bad, after which she says that nothing can be done, and she claims that she will tell the king about everything and will not allow Akron to be punished. The servant then looks at the princess with a little surprise, and then bows and thanks her. The main character says that it's okay, but asks him to raise his head, after which the servant does so. A little while later, the girl turns to the maid and sees that she is a little worried, and also asks what happened. The girl replies that someone has come to see the mistress, and the young lady thinks who could need her, after which she tells the guest to come in. Then someone greets Her Highness, and the main character wonders who this person is. The man at this time claims that Her Majesty wishes to see the princess, and the girl wonders if she can't even rest. A short time later, they arrive at Her Majesty's palace, and the man claims that the queen is walking in the garden, and the young lady wonders if she should go there then. The butler claims that the lady must first visit several places, and the young lady wonders where she's supposed to go. A little while later, the girl finds herself in the bathroom, and she wonders what this is and why they're treating her like this, one of the maids. He asks the princess if the water is warm enough, and the other one says she will bring her something to drink. A little while later, the girl is also dressed and asked which accessory she prefers. The young lady realizes that even if she sells just one of these expensive items, she will not have to go hungry for months. Well, now she's wondering why they're doing this and whether they really gave the dress as a sign of hospitality. One of the maids claims that it is Her Majesty's order to give the dress and jewelry to Princess Lottie as an apology. The main character then thinks that these maids are also victims and remembers how the guy claimed there were maids who testified against Lottie. Now the young lady just gets up and says that after meeting with Her Majesty, she will make a decision. A short time later, the girl is already out in the garden. The queen is talking to someone and insists that the Bariotras are rebelling in recent days, so they should increase their wages. The maid, who is near the main character, addresses Her Highness and claims that Princess Lottie has arrived. One of the servants at this time bows and states that a guest has come to see Her Majesty, so he leaves her, and the woman says that it is good. Then he turns to the young lady and tells her to come over to him. The protagonist looks at the woman, and she realizes that she learned from Betty how the current king ascended to the throne. So that His Majesty would have a solid foundation, she abdicated the throne, and the girl wonders if such a man cares about a helpless girl like her. At this point, the woman says that they have said hello, and now they can sit down. Well then, the main character feels someone's gaze on her and understands that it is of course the maid, and that the situation could repeat itself. But how openly she expresses it is why now the young lady turns to Her Majesty and asks her for forgiveness. He also asks if she can try the tea first, otherwise she will go crazy just from that look. The former queen then laughs and says that the princess should forgive this maid because she is still a child and has been like this since childhood, and nothing has changed. Well, the main character says that nevertheless, she is sure that this maid is one of those who can distinguish between public and private affairs, after which the woman says, "Yes, of course." The maid then bows and apologizes, and he also claims that they had no evidence, but they continued to suspect Her Highness. The Empress then sips her tea, and the young lady is silent for a moment, after which she declares that she forgives them. And of course, she should have been very skeptical about this, but instead, let them continue to serve Her Majesty diligently. The maid then replied that yes, she too would follow Princess Lottie's words. The Empress then claims that the girl forgave more easily than she thought, and that the young lady could have been more indignant. The girl replies that if she were really angry, Her Majesty would immediately end their conversation. Lottie understands that she shouldn't forget that she's only a child, and even the king has said so, even though children are more reserved. As for her, she can't be sure, but she certainly can't play with fire, and the young lady asks if Her Majesty is interested in anything else. The woman claims that the girl refused the gift and asks if there is anything else she wants. Yulia understands that she refused a gift, after which no one will remember her for a long time. I now assert that she would like to enjoy tea with Her Majesty. The young lady also realizes that she needs to demand something that can create a connection between them, and the woman now claims that she is already free today, but asks the girl to tell her why she wants to spend time with her. The little girl then asks if she has a reason for this, and then states it. He wants to get closer to his grandmother. The woman starts laughing at him after this and says it's amazing. After all, the little girl used to be a completely different child, and the girl claims that this is because she almost fell into eternal sleep in prison, and she has gone through a big test, and she also asks if that is the reason for her changes. The woman then claims that she will then ask her a question, and claims that he heard the girl run away during a walk and shout something in an ancient language. The main character then thinks about what she is talking about, but then remembers how she told the gods that she was declaring a strike, and he realizes that she truly spoke an ancient language. Lundo is her native tongue, and the language is from her first life, but now it is an ancient language, and after rebirth, the girl used the language familiar to her. And now the young lady says that this is how it all happened. The Empress asks if this is an ability that arose on the brink of life, or she's just reliving her old memories, and the woman claims she's too busy for tea, but will give her this in return, after which he hands over his bracelet and says that they will see what the girl is really capable of. The young lady then smiles sincerely and thanks the Empress, and then she remembers. She came not only for this, and asked about Her Majesty's health, to which the woman replied that it was already better, and the young lady apologizes, and also asks if she can check on her condition. The woman replies that yes, after which the young lady takes her hand in hers and states that it will not take long. The girl even wonders if the Empress has a chronic illness since she'd been seriously injured, before he then asks if it's noticeable and says it's true since they tried to poison her. Lottie understands that, because of the poison she took, she still has not been able to regain all her strength, and it is a miracle that she survived, although she still often loses consciousness. The young lady also approaches the Empress and asks if she knows about mandrake. The woman replies that of course she does, and that it's an ingredient for magicians. Lottie replies that it can also be used as a medicine if you drink a strong brew, and it restores lost energy. Mandrake from the southern part of the continent is considered the most effective. The girl asks if she can have some of this remedy. The woman replies that yes, and if she finds mandrake roots, she'll give them to the young lady. She also says it's amazing and asks how the girl knows all this. The main character then says that she simply read a lot of books. A little later, the girl is already looking at the remedies she made from this root. He also understands that it was a huge challenge to obtain and prepare mandrake, but drinking it is even worse. However, the girl understands that she must do this, after which she drinks anyway. And then he starts coughing and claims that it's disgusting, and the maid asks if the mistress really needs to heat the room. The young lady replies that yes, it is necessary, because yesterday she drank and was able to easily walk for a whole 10 minutes. Betty then asks what the list on the table is, and the young lady notes that it is people assigned to her palace and fellow maids. Betty then asks what she is talking about and claims that there are so many people, and also wonders if they all belong to the palace. The main character then claims that she wants to ask whether Betty's salary is paid on her behalf, to which the maid replies that yes, and that is true, because she receives everything from Her Highness. Lottie then realized that labor and medication costs were the highest, but Betty was the only one there, and she wasn't getting any medication. The girl also thinks that because of her weak body, it is easy to deceive with the price of medicines and the subsequent big expenses. These are bushes and flowers, but everything in the yard is in a paid state. And the girl understands that from the first day they brought in the cheapest and worst things and simply planted them in the ground. So a lot of money was stolen, and the young lady asks who the old dean is. Betty replies that it is the Baron, and he is a good man because he often came and also checked the mansion. And he even helped her, after which the main character wonders if it was really him who stole her money. She also says that everything is clear. Then she turns to Betty and says that she wants her to help her. A little while later, someone approaches the Baron and asks why he is running away again. The man asks what they are saying and whether he is really running away, and the other man says, okay, and he wonders when the Baron will give him back his money since he has been his debtor for a long time. The blonde tells the guy to calm down and asks why he is so worried, because he will soon return his money to him, and that he should not worry because he has been a regular at the gambling house for 10 years. And the man knows that he knows who to take money from because it can be done. This mudblood. However, another man claims he's heard bad news, and rumors say she's caught the eye of Her Majesty. And the money he spent should go unpunished, only because no one from the imperial family looked at it. The Baron then tells his colleague not to worry, as these are just rumors. Or two men claim that one can only hope. After all, many people besides him are interested in the rumors. The man also recalls how the border guard insisted that everything was true, and how Her Majesty and Miss Lottie drank tea together. So now he just continues and claims that it was the mudblood who attracted the Empress's attention. He also claims he must fix it. The man realizes that the box he knew is dirty. She was a stupid, immature little girl, and her self-esteem was shattered into pieces. The man claimed that her mother was as insecure as she was, so it was better not to get close to other members of the imperial family. After all, the little girl is too incapable, and she understands that only he is worried about Her Highness, and she can only trust him, and it has been like this for 10 years. So the man thinks that he cannot lose his life, but then he tries to calm himself down and thinks that everything will be fine. This man will never abandon him. A short time later, he comes to the young lady's mansion, and the main character greets him. The Baron only smiles and says that they haven't seen each other in a long time. Her Highness. And he must also introduce himself again, after which he claims that his name is Leold Dean. He is also responsible for Her Highness's palace. The girl then looks at its decoration, and she thinks that it's kind of strange, after which she says that she's glad to meet you, and her name is Lottie Pandarian. The girl also asks if she can introduce herself like that, and the man replies that she can too. He also understands that even if memory is lost, then of course the person does not change, after which he claims that he heard about the unpleasant incident and had to find her. The man also says that he was late because his grandmother went to God, but he thinks that she actually passed away 3 years ago. The young lady then, a little surprised, says that it's okay, and if only she knew. She should have been more concerned, and the girl apologizes. The man thinks that's great, and didn't the young lady become more obedient? But then the girl turns to the Baron, and she claims that she wants to ask why the palace is managed so poorly because she heard from another servant. That money doesn't come in every month, and the man is then shocked and thinks, "What the hell is this?" And what did the girl say? He claims it was all done for Her Highness, and that the young lady is interested in the summer for her. The Baron claims that most of the money goes towards her medications, and that she didn't order the yard's landscaping to be replaced. He even hands over an expense report and tells the young lady to take a look. The man understands that he treated him a little, but the young lady could not notice it. The girl then watches this and says that it is all her fault, and she is very sorry to the Baron, and the man insists that everything is fine. He also thinks what a fool she is, because no matter how you look at it, it's clear that she will have to go hungry a lot. However, then the man turns his gaze to the chest of drawers and sees Her Majesty's jewelry there. He is shocked to realize that this is the entire bracelet that Her Majesty has been wearing since her youth. And he wonders if they not only spend time drinking tea, but also if the princess gets her favorite trinkets. But if they are so close, then instead of fearing, he should use this if he knows the future political actions. Even a little information can help him get rich, after which the man claims that there is talk that the girl has become close to Her Majesty. The young lady replies that yes, ever since she lost her memory, she has been taking care of her, and the woman gave her this and also told her many stories. Lottie claims that she talked about politics and history, and there was a lot of stuff there, even though she doesn't understand it. The man then smirks and says that it's just a jackpot, after which he states that it's clear. He also asks what they talked about, and asks if the girl can tell him. After all, before she always told everything that happened, and he always leaves her secrets undisclosed. And also 10 years ago as proof, and he is always happy to talk to Her Highness. He also wonders if the girl would like to tell him a little. I then say that only the Baron should know, and Her Majesty said that they would soon significantly increase the duty on tobacco leaves with benthic acid. The man understands that this is excellent information, and tobacco leaves are most popular among the nobility as an imported product. It is obvious that a sudden increase in duties on some products will send the price of the products sky high, and he will have to buy everything. But then he thinks that it is not enough to buy everything, because he definitely heard something in the gambling house in Port Dawn. After which, he immediately rises from his seat, and the young lady asks the Baron what happened. The man then claims that he remembered an urgent matter, and so he will go, and the young lady agrees. After which, he immediately runs out of the room, and the young lady only smirks and says goodbye to the Baron. A little while later, the young lady again drinks this disgusting root decoction. At this time, the maid approaches the mistress, and the young lady tells her to tell the story. The maid then asks, a little surprised, how the mistress guessed that she wanted to say something, and the young lady claims that she always sneaks up on her whenever there is any question. Betty then asks what she's talking about, and insists it's not true. The maid also argues that since the Baron stole the mistress's money, couldn't they just tell the king? However, the young lady replies that no, and if they tell, then most likely they will be able to return the stolen money to the treasury, and she is a victim and cannot return a penny. So the girl claims that they will make glue for the flying things in one go. After all, firstly, she will receive money, secondly, medicine, and the trust of His Majesty. after which the young lady rises from her seat and tells the maid that they should go through. The girl is then a little surprised, and the young lady asserts that they will go to the king. The man is sitting in his office at this time and thinking about the lady with silver hair. The more he thinks about her, the more his head starts to hurt, and he remembers men. They were holding hands and kissing. Then at one point, the girl ran away, and no matter how much the king asked her to stay, he could not even after a short time. A child appeared before him, and he was told that it was his child, and this girl also claimed that she could no longer raise the baby, so let her be near him, and the headache hasn't subsided since the meeting. Then one of the aristocrats told His Majesty that there was no need to appoint this girl as a princess because he already had 2 children from the empress, so let him make a wise decision. Another man then said that His Majesty was not going to abandon his sister, and the king only addressed them and claimed that Lottie was his daughter. The girl grew slowly, and he secretly sent her medicine and food, but it did not help. The man hoped for her to grow up quickly and hoped that she would recover. And he hoped so much that she would not disappear, that all his thoughts were only about them. And finally, the war that had dragged on for many years was over. The king gradually sorted out the remaining problems, but suddenly the former queen was poisoned. He was looking for evidence of the false accusation, but the girl herself cleared her name. And now the man just smiles. But then someone turns to His Majesty and he replies that he is thinking, after which he asks, "What's going on with the search for smugglers?" One of the servants claims that business is slow. And what about the gambling house? Well then, a young lady appears in front of them and then lifts the hem of her dress. And he greets His Majesty. The man looks at her a little coldly and then asks what happened. The young lady claims that she has a request for him, after which she asks for forgiveness and claims to rephrase it. The girl then claims that she has come to make a deal and will help him catch the smugglers. But in exchange, he'll grant her one wish, which surprises the man. The baron is near the coast at the time, and one of the men asks if he is sure that the information is reliable, to which the man replies that of course he is interested. Does the guy think that the queen just gave her bracelet to the mudblood? But he'd heard that the duty on tobacco leaves would soon be raised. The other man then insisted that he could only believe his words. After all, he is risking his condition, but the blonde man tells him not to worry. After all, with the prophet, they will live no worse than high-ranking nobles, after which the other man agrees. But then someone comes up to them and greets them. The 2 men are very surprised, and the young lady, with a grin on her face, says that she is glad to meet the baron, and also asks how long it took him to achieve his goal. The man then asks in shock where she came from, and the blonde in shock asks if it was all a lie. The little girl replies that it's all a lie, after which the baron only gets angry and thinks that the bracelet and tobacco leaves are parts of a trap. I think the man is saying that it was stupid to come alone, because she could have at least captured a couple of soldiers from them. That is, they had insurance. After which, he points his finger at these guys to come at the same moment. Several assassins jump out from behind, and the baron claims that they have time and opportunity to escape. And they will also become a wall between him and the young lady. The girl then looks at the baron silently and smirks. Then she asserts that it was foolish to bring only a couple of people, because she is not alone and has a whole squad with her. And she also wants to say that the bracelet is real. The assassins then turn to their threat and claim they hadn't agreed to anything like that. Meanwhile, someone else turns to Luldeen and Baton Lurton. The man then asks in shock if this is the king, and the young lady's father claims that they have been sentenced to death for conspiring with smugglers. The men immediately fall down and scream, but the man only plunges them into eternal sleep. A little while later, one of the knights says that this is a good job, because they not only caught the smugglers, but will also be able to get rid of the trading places. And these mercenaries were also problems, so they dealt with them successfully. The king at this point turns to the young lady, and he claims that he has a couple of questions for her and is interested in how she found out that Baron Dean is connected to smugglers. The girl replies that the smugglers don't sell the goods themselves. She also understands that a gambling house is the best place to sell contraband, and the girl claims that the connection between these and illegal things seemed logical to her. The knight claims that their investigation was moving in the same direction, but they were too cautious. And the girl realizes that this is obvious because she was bullied for 10 years. The king turns to the young lady and asks how she found out that the contraband would be tobacco leaves. Well, the young lady replies that it's very simple, and this is the most expensive imported product, but it is imported in small quantities, and she just didn't expect to see a whole shipload of contraband. The man is silent for a moment after that, and then he turns to the knight and tells him to give the princess what he promised, to which the guy agrees. And he claims that for each smuggler, there are 1,000 gold coins, and 20% of the contraband received. The main character looking at all this thinks that it is wonderful, but understands that this is not the end. The knight at this time turns to her and claims that they searched Baron Dean's house and found a family heirloom. He also claims that if they understood correctly, these are seeds. The young lady notes that, yes, that's true. The girl also realizes that on the day they met, she noticed a brooch with an engraved starflower. But this flower no longer grows within human reach. Unlike his ancestors, the Baron did not know its value, and probably for this reason, the flower was on the family coat of arms, but consequently, the seeds were preserved as a family heirloom. And the girl understands that a simple person cannot grow a star flower, but neither can she. And the young lady is confident of her success. Meanwhile, the emperor turns to the princess, and he claims that he listens to her desires, and the girl can ask for whatever she wants, because he will fulfill any of her requests. After which, the main character asks him to talk to Akron. The man is a little surprised and asks, does she want him to talk to Akron? He also claims that he receives daily messages about the guy's condition, so there is no need for this. However, the young lady claims that she is talking about something else, and wonders when was the last time he spoke face-to-face with him. The man replies that he often asked how he was doing, and the little girl asks if the answer was always the same, to which the man is surprised. And he remembers how the young man responded to His Majesty every time, and how everything is usually fine with him, and he will also continue to try his best. And he cannot afford to disappoint His Majesty. Now the man understands how distant he became from his children, and the young lady understands that it's true. The girl also wonders if he really believed it, that a 10-year-old child feels the same thing every day, but even adults experience different emotions, and children are even more emotional. The girl also understands that children can talk for hours about the new birds. They saw the sky that was different from yesterday's cloudy one, and the stars at night. Well, when a child repeats the same thing day after day, he tries his best to gain recognition. And it is very easy to make sure of this. So now the young lady is telling His Majesty to talk to Akron. He told her what had happened today, and about his difficulties. The girl also told them to maintain eye contact. For communication to be pleasant, this is her desire, and this time she asks for it. The man shouldn't scold Arkin, even if he does something wrong. The king then asks, what about the baby? And isn't there anything she wants for herself, and not for Akron? The young lady is then a little surprised, and she thinks about what she wants, after which the man tells her to say what she needs. Then the girl replies that nothing. Then she approaches the two and tells them they're finishing up and leaving, after which the young lady leaves, and leaves the king alone, and the man wonders why she doesn't want anything. The next day, the maid comes to the mistress and says that the food warehouse is full. The main character asks if it's been fixed yet, and Betty replies that yes, they arrived and fixed everything very quickly. Rumors spread that yesterday, she and the king were arresting smugglers and gamblers, and the entire royal palace already knows about it. The girl also looks outside and realizes that the gifts sent by the king have arrived. The young lady understands that this is all very luxurious, and also thinks how many gold coins are there, because it seems to be much more than promised. And she also thanks him for sending me so much, but the girl understands that she cannot stand out without reason, because it will lead to trouble. As is known, she is illegitimate, and there are two people claiming the throne above her. If they catch sight of her, they will grab her by the throat, no matter what she says in her defense. And even if it seems that there are no problems, it is not the king who is traveling through the provinces, but the queen and the young lady heard that the war, which lasted for years, was finally over. But despite everything, the queen was not only busy with affairs in the palace, but also took care of problems outside the capital, which means she also thirsted for power. If someone considers her an obstacle, then this will become a problem, and the girl must quietly take care of herself. After which she turns to the maid and says that in the future, a new worker will appear, after which she asks if this is true. He also asks if this means the lady has found a replacement for Baron Dean. The girl replies that no, and she was unable to find a maid or servant. She understands that she cannot take anyone on recommendation, because if she brings in someone unverified, he could become like Baron Dean, after which the young lady turns to the maid and hands her the key to the food storage and safe, and also asks if she can take care of this because she trusts her more than anyone. The maid is a little surprised by this, after which she thanks the mistress for her trust. Well, and then she claims that she can't, after which the young lady is a little surprised. He also understands that she did not expect a refusal and is interested in what the problem is. And the maid replies that she was so young when she came to the palace and cannot read. The main character then looks at her a little surprised, and the girl claims that her mother was a servant in an aristocratic family, and thanks to her mistress, she was able to enter the royal palace. The young lady then looks at the maid with a slightly sad expression, and then he says that she can learn and she will teach her how to write. The girl then asks if she can learn, and the main character says that if she wants, she will even teach the girl an ancient language. Betty is then a little surprised and claims that this is what aristocrats are taught. The main character then pulls her friend by the cheeks again and then says that Betty should remember that there are no things that are only allowed to one class. The girl also understands that knowledge is like water, and if you only allow one class, then the water will stagnate and soon rot. How was it with herbalism before? And if in one life it reached 10 levels, then in the next one she got no more than a 7th or 8th. And this is terrible. So now the young lady screams for the maid to do what is in her power and repeat because she succeeded. Thus began the teaching of writing, and soon, due to rumors, other servants came, and the young lady began to teach them. The lessons went very well, and by the end of the day, the girl already felt very tired. She understood that if views on education were transformed, more people would study. But then she gets a little upset and thinks that it's impossible because she won't do anything. And this won't work because she just needs to lie around. But at that very moment, someone enters the room and screams. The young man then says something that begins with EE, but cannot say anything beyond that letter. And the main character asks if he really needs the restroom, and the young man then screams that it's not that. He also claims that His Majesty asked him for a meeting. The little girl then wonders if he's finally done it, and apparently it took more time to finish the job with the smugglers and the gambling house. At this time, the guy asks why he called him, and maybe he found out about Viscount Polton. And is he really calling him to punish him? But the young lady replies that no, and she doesn't think so. After all, he just wants to talk to the guy. And if he wants to tell him something, then let him do it. Akron is a little surprised by this, and also asks if he can do this, to which the young lady replies that of course. The young man then claims that there are indeed many things he would like to discuss, and this is the horse he recently raised. He also wonders if the girl knows what name he gave him, and he named the horse Alexander Alfredo Sebastian Zonda III. He also got a 100 in his last philosophy class, and the teacher said he was a genius. The little girl then says that yes, he is a genius, and it seems the guy cannot talk to her more simply, after which the young lady tells him to call her Nuna or just Lottie, and when they are not alone, let him observe minimal politeness. The young man becomes a little embarrassed after this and claims that he can do everything, and the young lady understands that addressing her this way may be too rude. At this time, the guy very embarrassedly says Nuna, and even with a mistake, after which the young lady. He repeats this mistake and laughs about it, and the young man sits there red as a tomato from embarrassment. He immediately cries out that no, he made a mistake, after which he calls her Nuna and asks if she sees that he can say it correctly. And the main character says that it was so cute with the mistake, and can't he call her that? However, this only makes the young man angry, after which he rises from his place. And he leaves and also claims that he went. The young lady understands that the day was fruitful and ended happily. And the next day, the girl found herself at a tea party, and she felt very uneasy. After all, she was drinking tea with the king. A little while ago, one of the servants came to see her, and he claimed to have brought a message from His Majesty the King, after which the young lady was a little surprised. And the man claimed that the sunny day was perfect for tea, so the young lady wondered why he wanted to go to tea with her, and also what happens after, which she understood that there was no reason to refuse, and claimed that it was fine, and that she would also come. A short time later, they were already heading towards the palace. Then the young lady butler asked if this was Countess Selah. The main character then looked in that direction, and one of the servants claimed that he understood the current situation, but still he can't help in any way. The woman then tries to say something. At this time, the young lady turns to the butler, asking if they know each other, and the man replies that yes, this girl has worked as a servant in the royal palace since childhood. Lottie understands that, of course, almost all the servants and maids belong to the royal palace, but some of them got married upon reaching adulthood, and the main character realizes that Lady Sela is one of them. The butler claims she must be in the palace on business, and he heard that several years ago, the Count of Sale had fallen into a crippling sleep after long years of decay. And besides, but then the man apologizes and claims that with age he has become too talkative, but the main character says that there is no need to apologize. The butler then claims that Lena is also taking it hard. The protagonist then wonders if he named her Lena, and they also remember how the maid claimed that she wanted Barandine to be replaced by Madame Lena, and the girl realizes that she heard this name from Betty, after which the young lady turns to the butler and asks whether Miss Sela had accidentally helped Betty. The man then says that this is true, and the woman often helped, after which the young lady becomes interested. What did Miss Sela do while at the palace? The butler replies that she managed the servants and that he personally trained her. And now, the main character realizes she's chosen a new maid. A short time later, the girl is already having tea with His Majesty. The young lady looks at the food and realizes it's all sugar, and the man picks up his baby and asks if she likes me. The main character replies that yes, and asks if there is food that is not so sweet. The king then says that he prepared all this because children her age love sweets. The main character then thinks that it all seems so painful, and even with a fork and knife. The man then claims that he will immediately order something else to be prepared, but the young lady says that it is not necessary, and she will eat it, and also think that she should accept his efforts, and can forgive this once or twice. The man insists that next time he will prepare something she likes, and the young lady wonders if he said it next time, and whether she heard it correctly, after which the girl puts down her fork and turns to the king, and also states what she wants to ask. Why did he invite her? The man then turns to the princess and asks if she didn't say that communication was necessary. The young lady is then a little surprised and says that if she hadn't answered, she meant Akron and not herself. The king then says that she is also his child, after which the young lady is silent for a while. And the man claims that he knows that he did not pay attention to her, and also knows that he was too indifferent, so he wants to apologize and is now asking her for forgiveness. The main character then thinks that this is definitely true, because they are family and it was all in her head. While the girl claims that, frankly speaking, she doesn't even know what to say and she feels so awkward. The man claims that he didn't think he would get a farewell right away, but he is interested. Couldn't the girl give him a chance, because he will wait for her answer as long as it takes? The main character then says that's fine, and she'll think about it. The young lady realizes that parental indifference is not uncommon. The same applies to cruelty, but nevertheless, there are parents who, after realizing it, tried to change their relationships with their children. In her past life, her mother claimed that she was so indifferent and would be kind to her in the future. However, the girl understood that nothing had changed, and when the parents felt that they were beginning to lose control and the children became independent, then they would offer their one-sided apologies. Of course, there were those who did not apologize until the very end, and she gave the king a chance because neither of her parents apologized to her. The young lady also remembers the face he made when he asked if she could give him a chance, and she realizes she needs to go back, so she needs to stop thinking about it. The girl also realizes she feels like she's forgotten something, but then the young lady remembers she'd forgotten all about Miss Sale. The girl sighs and says she was rejected after all, but at that very moment, she hears someone calling to her, and when she turns around, she sees the princess. At this time, the main character asks her to wait because she wants to talk. The woman then, in shock, asks if this is really a princess, and also asks if she is okay. The girl realizes that this woman's touch seems so familiar, and she wonders if she knows her. The girl replies that of course, and that the girl is after all the second princess of Lottie Pendarian, and Betty serves her. The woman also claims that she often brought her food, but the girl must not remember as she was only a child. The main character says that this is how she understands that maybe she shouldn't pay attention to this, but she wants to check. After which he claims that she lost her memory due to illness, and the woman speaks in shock that it is terrible, after which he puts his hands on the shoulders of the young lady and asks if Her Highness is in any pain now. And of course she's in poor health, but the main character realizes that she has a level voice, a weapon that's used to supporting others, and an overreaction to pain. And that faint scent emanating from Selah. The main character then says she's fine, and it was just a minor accident. And the woman then says, "Isn't memory loss a serious accident? After all, she should be more careful." The woman is also a little surprised, and claims that she seems to have said too much, after which she apologizes. And she also tells Her Highness that she must go, because she is expecting a child. Lottie sees bags under her eyes from lack of sleep, and her bitten lips as well as her eyes, which had long since lost their sparkle, so that undoubtedly even the loss of her memory had not erased the imprint of Miss Selah on her. Now the main character turns to the miss and asks how sick the child is. The woman then asks what it was. She was wondering who told her, and the young lady understands that it was easy to understand. After all, a woman is so sensitive to words about pain, and the scent of medicinal herbs seems to envelop her body. But something else gave her confidence. Eyes full of self-loathing. That's why the young lady now claims that everyone gets tired of constantly caring for someone else. The girl also understands that it is not easy to always be a seriously ill person without having the opportunity to heal him. Well, you need to keep moving forward, even if you don't see the end, and the bright smile disappears from your face, and the energy leaves the body, and the one who was already caring becomes a real patient. For anyone, this is a very difficult test, and the accompanying feeling of guilt that nothing can be done. The woman just starts to cry at this point, and the main character takes her hands and says that Miss did an excellent job, and she deserves credit for going this far. But then the woman asks, "Isn't she a terrible mother? And how can she call herself a mother after everything that happened?" However, the main character claims that she does not think so, and she did everything in her power. Then the young lady watches the woman cry, and a little while later asks what he is sick with. The woman replies that he has Roman fever, and the young lady understands that they say this fever originated in the region of Rome on another continent. Local residents suffered from it as if it were a common cold, but in other regions it became a serious problem, and the bodies of the sick were completely covered in red spots and suffered from fever until they fell into eternal sleep. The most terrible thing was that they got better, and then worse, literally sucking the life out of a person. Then the two sit down on a bench, and the woman claims that no matter how expensive the medications were, it only got better for a short time. But then the condition was even worse than before. Having no money for medicine and doctors, the Countess first fired all the servants, then sold the jewelry paintings and furniture, and then the mansion. The woman also claims that she even sold her engagement ring, but there is not enough money. She also tried to get a job as a governess, but was rejected due to fears of infection. She also says that it's a long story, but the girl listened to her, so she feels a little relieved. The main character then asks if she can see the child, and the woman doesn't understand why. Lottie replies that she's recently become interested in trauma and has already learned a lot from her teacher. She also understands that only a small part of this is a lie. And the woman thanks her, but claims that it won't help because she was able to call the most famous doctor in the empire. But he claimed that, unfortunately, even Mrs. Carbom could not cure him. Carbom is the goddess of herbalism who lived hundreds of years ago, and if they talk about her, it means the patient will definitely fall into eternal sleep. But the main character is now surprised and wonders if they are really talking about her in a past life. A little while later, the woman claims that it is incredible and approaches her son with shaking hands. He also claims his complexion has improved significantly. The boy lying on the bed is named Raven Selah. The young lady at this time claims that as soon as the water boils, you need to let it cool and then wipe your body with this water twice a day. And within a week, the fever should disappear. The woman then claims that she is immensely grateful to the mistress and doesn't even know how to repay her favor. Well, she still asks Her Highness what kind of medicine she has prepared because she has tried all possible herbs. However, this is the first time she sees that the decoction works. The main character thinks that this is not surprising because this is a decoction made from a starflower that she carefully grew. Every day, she placed the seeds under the starlight, and the undines watered them with their water, and so they finally sprouted. But she had no other choice because the usual treatment was not suitable, and the child's condition was critical. Now the young lady is a little downcast and thinks that it's okay, because she still has a few seeds left. A woman in a video asks a young lady if everything is okay with her, and the main character replies that everything is fine. Hey, let her not pay attention. The girl also claims that the countess said that they did not know how to repay her. The woman replies that this is true, and if her highness wants something, then let him tell her. After which the main character takes the woman by the hand and asks if she would like to become her maid. The woman then looks a little puzzled, and the main character wonders if she will be rejected again. The maid then thanks her for curing her son, but insists she can't become her highness's maid. Lottie asks why, and the woman replies that she feels awkward, but she'll be honest. And she claims that Raven's great-grandfather, who is Viscount Byron, is trying to take him away from her. The main character asks if he really wants to take the child away, and the woman replies that yes, and he wants to become the boy's guardian. But the truth is that he hopes to plunge the boy into eternal sleep in order to get the title. And although she continues to refuse him, the man pressures her, citing Raven's illness. And he even talked about marriage, the main character, then says that she heard the woman but still doesn't understand. And if she becomes a maid, then at least she'll earn some money. The woman replies that this is true, but the maid's salary is not that big, and the young lady then thinks that she will increase it 10 times. However, the woman says that the child needs a guardian even if it is not Viscount Byron, so she wants to ask her distant relative. And if she stays there as her maid, she will be separated from Raven. But she can't do this to him because her husband has fallen into eternal sleep, and now she only has Raven left. So she declines her highness's offer and apologizes. But the protagonist merely turns to Countess Lena Sela and claims she has one question, after which the girl asks whether the woman would agree to become her maid if the problems with Raven's salary, guardianship, and education were resolved. The woman is then a little surprised, after which he smiles and replies that yes, and she would be very happy. The main character then says that's fine and let her follow her. The woman is a little surprised and asks where her highness wants to go. The girl replies that she wants to go and solve problems. A little while later, they approach the king, and the young lady claims that she wants to make Countess Sela her maid. The man then says that the girl has no reason to come to him if she wants to hire one of the servants, and he asks if she really has a problem, that is why they came to him. The young lady replies that everything is correct, and the countess has no grounds for refusal, but she needs to become the guardian of the countess's son, Raven Sale. The woman is very surprised after this, and so is His Majesty. The girl asserts that she wants it too, so that Countess Sela and her son could remain living in her palace. The man then tells the princess that unfortunately, she is too young to become a guardian, and the girl wonders if she can't become a guardian if the king gives his blessing. The man then wants to say something to the young lady, but she only wonders if this is too much. The girl understands that the use of power is what makes her different from others. The man only sighs after this, and then turns to the countess and asks what she has to say, and also does she agree to the second princess Lottie Pendarion becoming the guardian for Ravensale. The woman then doesn't even know how to answer, and the young lady only whispers to her that the salary will be 10 times higher, after which the countess is silent for a moment, and then recalls how the young lady claimed that the woman deserved praise for having gone so far, and the fact that she is a wonderful mother and also did everything in her power, so now she just smiles. And he claims it would be an honor for her. A short time later, the woman enters the mansion, and she is welcomed, and also states that her name is Lena Sela, and from this day on, she is the maid of Her Highness the Princess. And thanks to her mercy, she will remain in the palace with her son, the boy. Meanwhile, peers out from behind his mother, and he asks to take care of him, and also claims that his name is Raven Sela. The maid then greets Mistress Lena, and the other maids also ask her to take care of them. Thus, Lena has successfully become the protagonist's maid. And now the young lady is lying on the bed and thinking that she can finally rest and lie in your warm bed. At that very moment, someone knocks and claims to be the maid Sela and asks if they can come in. The young lady then tells her to come in, and the woman does so, and also states that she feels she should thank the lady again, and she thanks her for her help. The young man also claims that he will definitely repay the princess's favor, and she can rest assured. And the main character thinks how cute he is, after which she thanks him and asks him to take care of her. Meanwhile, the woman tells the princess that she's noticed a few things that need to be corrected, and first she needs to buy a new dress. Betty says that's true, and the lady only has 4 dresses, and those are from last year. And the young lady thinks it seems shopping is unavoidable. Lena insists that etiquette requires at least 3 outfits for each season, and a walking dress as well as home clothes, and a dress for going out will be needed. After which, the woman asks if the lady would mind if she did this, to which the girl agrees, and Lena claims that she knows an excellent tailor, and the young lady says that apparently the woman knows more about fashion than she could have imagined. Lena replies that of course it's impossible to work in the royal palace without understanding fashion, since at the peak of her career, she visited various ateliers every weekend. So the lady has no reason to worry about the upcoming prayer celebration, and she will prepare everything. Betty says this is certain, and the celebration is already so soon. The young lady then asks what kind of celebration it is, and the girl replies that it is a prayer celebrations. This is an important national event that takes place at the end of spring. Everyone prays for well-being and health. They pray for one day, but the holiday itself lasts 3 days. Betty claims that the opening of the prayer, it takes place in the Daitome Temple, which is located near the royal palace. However, the young lady insists she won't go. The girl understands that the gods are clearly evil. Since she refused to make nectar, how can she go to the temple? And despite that Daitome is a kind goddess, but she should still avoid attention. However, the maid immediately tells her that this is not right and she should leave. One of them claims that this is an event of national significance, and members of the royal family cannot remain on the sidelines. The entire royal family must attend the national event. The main character then wonders if the whole family will be there. Betty, meanwhile, addresses Her Highness, and he asks if she doesn't want to see everyone, because she is Her Majesty the Queen. Prince Leonard and Princess Stella will be there. Lena says that's wonderful, and Betty replies that this is true, but the main character thinks that everything is not so, and she wonders if she will be able to stay if she faints, and still wonders when she will be able to rest. A little while later, the main character is already riding in a carriage and thinks that if she jumps out of it, she won't have to go to the celebration. Well, she also thinks that if Daitome shows up and asks why she doesn't make nectar, and also will the king and queen take more care of her, but then the queen, the prince and princess would watch over her, and of course, at least once she would have to meet the gods. So Daitome is the lesser of the 2 evils for her, but the girl still understands that she doesn't want to go to this holiday at all, and now is such a bad time. After all, because of her affairs, the entire aristocracy is watching her. At this moment, someone turns to Nuna and asks if everything is all right. It turns out to be a prince, and he asks the girl if it's hot and whether she should open the window. The girl replies that she is fine, and also turns to the boy and asks why he is going to the Daitome Temple with her. The girl understands that during official events, members of the royal family travel separately to avoid accidents. Meanwhile, the young man says it's simply her first official event. He wonders what if she behaves foolishly and tarnishes the family name. However, the young lady says that he just wanted to go with her, and the young man cries out that everything is wrong. And then the girl asks if this is all because he's still young and really needs to be held, and if he wants to hold her hand. The young man just cries out, and the main character turns to him again and thinks how upset the guy is. The young lady also asks if he knows, however the guy replies that he is not interested. But the girl continues her proposal and asks if he knows she wanted to go with him. And if she goes alone, she'll be nervous because it's her first time, and that's why she wanted to go with him, so she thanks him. The young man then claims that this time he forgives her, and the main character hits the guy on the head, and she thinks how cute he is. But then the young man turns to his sister and asks if she wants to know anything about others, like the queen or the prince. The main character then wonders if the guy went with her to help her, and he claims that this could become a problem, and if she starts asking questions, she could get punished. But there is no one who could tell. The young man then says that he can do this for her. Their main character asks if this is true, after which she says that he is the best. The guy then begins his story and claims that Her Majesty the Queen's name is Clea Pandarion, and she is very beautiful before the wedding. She was the Marchioness of Floyd. The main character is then surprised to hear the last name and wonders if this is the last name of that guy who pestered her during the incident with the poisoning of the queen. And that means it's because she is his family, and the young lady is an illegitimate child. The girl realizes that Prince Leonard is 10 years older than her and has a great talent for magic. He is already a fifth circle wizard. The girl also understands that people usually end their lives on the second or third circle, and at 20 years old, it is very difficult to reach the fifth circle, and the guy is a real genius. Akron claims that he is kind to him, but they rarely see each other because he is usually in the magic tower. And finally, Princess Stella, 9 years older than the young lady, is an excellent spearman, has already become a knight, and has even fought monsters. She also fought in the war, and the girl understands that the king is a master swordsman. The eldest son is a wizard, and the eldest daughter is a knight, and that is why Akron is losing heart. The main character then asks if the boy is learning fencing, and he replies that yes. He's thought about it a lot, but fencing is still the best activity for him, and yet he's worried. The main character asks what it's about, and the guy replies that they usually start at an earlier age, and it seems it's too late to start. The main character understands that this is how things are, and usually begins training no later than at age 5. Well, now she says that it is not too late, and can only do a little, and it also does not matter when to start. After all, the main thing is to get to the end, to which the young man agrees and smiles. And a little while later, they arrive at the palace. The young man then turns to his sister and claims that there is a tree nearby that Detome herself planted, and he asks if she wants to go and see it later. The heroine then agrees, and the knight approaches her, claiming everyone has already arrived and is in their rooms. The young lady asks if they're ready yet, and the man insists they were expecting a long celebration. There's only a short time left, and he thinks they should hurry. Afterwards, they head off somewhere, and the young lady approaches the knight, asking if the business with the unfamiliar gambling house is over. The man replies that, yes, of course. And all the smugglers were caught and the gambling house was closed. The young lady then says, that's how it is. And the knight insists there's one person left whom they can't find. He always wore a mask in the gambling house, and the young lady realized that the problem most likely lay in the fact that this gambling house was for the aristocracy. The man claims all the testimony is confusing and can't even tell whether it's a woman or a man. The only consistent thing in the stories is the mask, and the main character wonders if it's a magical illusion. The man claims they even sought help from the royal wizard from the Magi Tower. The young lady says she hopes they'll find an answer quickly. The man claims that he has other things to do, so he will leave the girl, after which another priest approaches her. She also claims that she will accompany her from there. The main character then doesn't move on, but hears someone's voice. This voice asks where the young lady is going, and claims that he knows what he is doing, and hears him. The girl then addresses her by her first and last name, but then corrects herself and addresses her as a traveler, a palace of nectar. The main character stops, and the priest asks the princess if something has happened, and the young lady then wonders if they hear anything and where this sound is coming from, after which the voice tells the girl to look below. And the main character does the attack, but then thinks it can't be happening, on the floor near her foot. The main character sees a branch of some plant, and it appears to be the goddess of fertility. The goddess at this time says that she is so glad that Lottie is there, and she lay on the ground for more than 2, and she also already thought that she would plunge into eternal sleep. But Lottie wonders if the girl hadn't decided to have a good rest, leaving the holy relic. The girl understands that usually the gods inhabit the relic, because this way they can communicate with the priests. The fertility goddess then claims that she doesn't know why she's still there, and the main character wonders what she's talking about. The woman claims that she, as usual, tried to enter the relic to bestow a blessing, but was thrown back. So the young lady then wonders why she doesn't give up her appearance and return to the divine world, and she'll certainly give up her health this time. The goddess, however, insists she can't do that, and that the other bugs will mock her for tens of thousands of years. After all, as soon as she thinks of Curious, someone immediately sees his face. The main character thinks she doesn't like him either, and the boy always demanded more nectar. Meanwhile, the goddess begged the young lady to help her return to the realm of the gods, for she would repay the girl with whatever she desired. Lottie then says that it is good, and regardless of the power of God being in the human world for a long time, is fraught with serious side effects. So now the young lady only says that she should not forget about God and protect her. The girl then puts the sprig in her clothes, and Akron asks what's wrong with it. Lottie replies that nothing happened and that she simply picked up the stalk of grass that was lying there. And then the young man says that they can go. But one of the priests cries out that something bad has happened. The friend then asks what happened since today is a quiet and pious day. But the young man claims that he is asking for forgiveness. But the priest Antin, the main character, only sighs after this and realizes that she is sure that this is all because of Datome, after which she claims that something serious must have happened, so they should go faster. A little while later, someone asks for forgiveness and announces that Her Highness Princess Lottie and Prince Acheron have arrived. At this time, the main character realizes that she tried so hard and wanted so much to avoid these people because Queen Clea's there. And Princess Stella, as well as Prince Leonard the Queen, then greets Acheron and Princess Lottie. And the main character bows, after which the woman looks at her a little coldly, but still smiles. And she claims that she heard about the trouble that happened in her absence, and she is also sorry that she could not be there. The young lady tells Her Majesty that everything is fine, and at this time, Acheron turns to Her Majesty and asks if something has happened. His sister states that there seems to be a problem with the holy relic, and the young man is a little surprised. And the main character asks if she can find out what happened to the relic. Well, the princess then just wonders what the girl can do, after which someone closes the book and tells Stella to stop. It turns out to be a prince, and he claims that everyone knows that the gods can only give their blessing through a relic. The young lady replies that yes, she was told about it, but she understands that she did not see it. The man claims that Datome is the goddess of abundance, and she was unable to enter the relic. And to find out the reason, His Majesty the King and Her Majesty the former Queen, as well as the high priest, gathered in that room. The main character then wonders if the relic is there too. The goddess then addresses the young lady, and he asks her to hurry. Lottie realizes she's acting like a little child, and she is after all the sister of the chief god. However, the goddess claims that she feels much younger, and the main character says in her thoughts that she has no words. The girl also asks if she can personally inspect the relic, after which they all remain silent. The queen and her daughter look at the girl coldly. One of them claims he can understand the princess's desire to help, but only if it concerns the relic. However, then someone tells the girl to come in and everyone is a little surprised. At this time, the person who entered the room claims that Lottie is well versed in herbs and even holy water, so she thinks that the girl can be useful. The young man then asks if the young lady is knowledgeable about herbs and holy water, and the woman turns to the young lady and asks if that is so, and then goes up to her and says that she is glad to see her. The main character understands that they are not so close and wonders why she addresses her so sweetly. At this time, the woman notices something else and asks where the girl made the bracelet. After all, she told her to wear it always. The rest of the family watches this with a little surprise, and the former queen simply tucks a strand of the young lady's hair and tells her to wear this bracelet always as a talisman, and she wants him to protect the baby the same way he protected her. The girl is then shocked, wondering why the former queen did this to her. The rest of the family watches as well, and the former queen turns to Lottie, and he asks if she'll come in with her for a bit. The girl nods and thinks that's right. She mustn't forget why she's there. After this, they go outside, and the main character asks if they intend to become impudent. The queen treated her in a friendly manner and smoked others. The woman replies that of course, and the young lady is surprised. And the former queen claims that she did not give her the bracelet for nothings, and she gave it to the girl in order to get something in return. A little while later, the little girl asks if the woman wants her to control Prince Leonard and Princess Stella. But the main character also asks how to do this, and screams that, as soon as she intervenes, they will take a knife to her back. The queen wonders if the girl really thinks so, after which she asserts that she thinks the girl will be able to change the royal family, and is looking forward to hearing from her. A little while later, the girl already enters the place where the priest is standing, and the king, seeing the girl, he asks what she's doing there. The former queen claims she brought a young lady, and Lottie's a wonderful herbalist, so they could use her help. Cool then turns to his mother a little worried, and the main character looks at this branch, after which the man asserts that it is true that the sacred relic of their temple of the goddess Datome is this branch. The king turns to the high priest and states that he wants to say that the celebration will be held in any case, and the man says that he understands. However, they still do not know whether the goddess Datome has possessed the relic. At this time, Kolosok is fidgeting in the young lady's bow and asks if they are really joking with her, and also says that they should let her come back. and if she tries now, she will look good. The main character then refuses and says that she should wait in case something is wrong with the relic. This could cause damage to the environment in the kingdom, so we need to figure this out first. The young lady asks if she can look at the holy relic of the wealthy. He says of course, but he asks her to be extremely careful. The girl then takes this branch in her hands and examines it from all sides, but realizes that there seems to be nothing there. The goddess then asks how this is possible, and the young lady claims that she really does not see any problems, and there is no damage, and that divine power is felt. And there is nothing strange about it. It also rarely looks as fresh as if it was just cut. So the main character wonders why she looks like this. She also asks the goddess if she remembers when this branch became a relic. The goddess replies that it was a very long time ago, and maybe a little over 1,000 years. Then the main character breaks this branch, after which the priest screams in shock at what the princess is doing. The king is perplexed. The priest asks how the young lady could have done so, considering it's a precious relic, and the main character replies that it's not so. And this branch is a fake, because if it were a real relic, then she would not be able to break it so easily. And everything that is made by the gods has strong divine power. The main character also understands that it is not easy for her to break even an ordinary branch. The priest also asks about this, perhaps after which they fall to the floor. The king approaches him and asks if he is even looking after the relics, but the high priest cries out to his majesty that there were no problems at the previous prayer celebration, and he himself saw that the relic definitely contains divine power. Lottie replies that it is certainly true that the divine power comes from her, and that it is also true that there were no problems until last year. The girl also asks how they usually protect the shrine, and the man replies that they hide it in a secret place with several seals, and he is the only one who knows where this secret place is. The main character asks if the relic is safe there, and the man replies that he is sure. And the young lady claims that the holy relic was then replaced at the end of last year's celebration, and that it is the one who is capable of terrible deeds who was able to deceive the king and the high priest. The girl now steps on this branch, after which it crumbles, and a stone is visible from there. And then the priest cries out in shock. Could it really be that a piece of the real relic was hidden in the fake? At this time, the goddess becomes furious and wonders who dared to insult her. The priests then go into shock and realize that the temple is shaking, and they cry out that it is an earthquake. One of them claims that the goddess Datom is furious. The main character tells her to calm down. And she also stopped right now, otherwise she would fall into eternal sleep. The goddess then stopped and apologized, after which the main character says that if the celebration is cancelled, people will be disappointed and rumors will spread that Datomi will leave Pandarian, so they need to create a new relic. The king is then a little surprised and asks the girl if it's necessary and how to do it. The young lady claims that they have something that was bestowed by the goddess Datome herself. The girl also remembers how the boy said that there was a tree nearby that Datome herself planted. A young lady asks if the stolen holy relic is part of this tree. The priest claims that the girl is right. According to records, the goddess Datome gave a fruit tree to feed the people, and then she broke a branch and gave it to them as a sacred relic. The goddess at this time claims that yes, that is how it was, because they prayed to her to feed all the people, but she forgot to prepare the gift. That's why she broke the branch. Now the young lady asks if they're going to the tree then, and the priest claims that he wants to tell Her Highness that the sacred tree is infected. A little while later, the girl approaches him and realizes that everything is true. She is also shocked to think how a sacred tree can get sick, and the king asks if they even look after the temple. If everything is in such a bad state, another priest immediately falls to his knees and bows his head asking for mercy. After all, it was all his fault as the guardian. But the high priest claims that he could not do anything. After all, the tree is already old and was even engulfed in flames, and he is sure that everyone remembers the Demon King. The main character then thinks about this bastard and realizes that when he turned 70 years old, the Demon King set fire to entire countries to plunge all people into eternal sleep. And because of him, the girl fell into eternal sleep a few months after her memory returned, and then it seems he disappeared without a trace. The priest claims that since then the tree has become weaker and weaker, and they also cannot help, because they do not know anything about divine diseases. The keeper then claims that it is still his fault that he was unable to save the tree, and he knows that his life is worth nothing. But he will take responsibility for spoiling the prayer celebration. The main character then realizes that he is saying something about responsibility, even though he did not prevent anything. The young lady claims that they will talk about punishment later, and there is still time for a holiday. The king then tells the young lady to tell him what she is going to do, and the girl states that she will make medicine to cure the saint and asks if she can get into the herb storage. The king then agrees, and the former queen states that it sounds wonderful, after which the young lady leaves and claims that she will return soon, and a little while later, she arrives with a test tube in hand and claims everything is ready. The goddess claims she believed in Lottie, and she knew that she could help, but the girl wondered what kind of medicine it was, after which the young lady smiled. And he thinks it's not a medicine at all, but poison. The goddess is then very surprised and asks what she's talking about, and the young lady claims that this is a bottle of ink and she was unable to make medicine before. But she found out. That intense pain can heal. The goddess is already crying out that the sacred tree is dying and that this is blasphemy. However, the young lady at this time looks at this tree with a smile on her face, after which the high priest turns to her and asks if everything will be okay. The girl replies that of course, and asks if he could pour his divine power into the tree, to which the priest agrees. However, he claims that the power will not work because of the illness, and her ice claims that now everything will work out and he will have to apply all his strength. The man says that he understood, after which he and his colleague begin to use divine powers. They try their best, and someone cries out that the disease is retreating. However, the young lady claims that more is needed to, which they agree. After which, the tree begins to blossom, and then turns completely green, and then the young lady says that the sacred tree is healed. At this time, the priest claims that the Lord himself is calling him to himself, and the guardian asks him to come to his senses. The goddess at this time claims that this is amazing, and now the girl will be able to cure absolutely any tree. But the young lady replies that no, and she is the only one who can make this poison. But this requires enormous divine power. And now she says that a new divine relic needs to be made. The goddess then asks how she'll do that if she's still in a sprout. The girl asks if the relic is an object that a god touched and gave to a human. The goddess replies that it seems so, and after touching it, the object becomes sacred and asks what's the matter. And the main character says that then everything will be fine, after which she breaks one of the branches, and the goddess asks what she is doing. The girl claims that she will wrap the god around the branch, and the goddess in shock asks what she is talking about, after which the main character begins to wind her blonde, only complains of back pain. A little while later, the sprout is already wrapped around the branch and begins to shine. The king and the former queen are then a little surprised, and the main character says that she succeeded. The priest then asks how this is possible, and the young lady claims that she will say it yesterday in her sleep. Detome came to her asking for help, stepped back, and explained this method. The goddess then said that the girl was saying something absurd, but the priest at this time only begins to sob and call out to the goddess Dithoma, and the young lady merely asserts that deep faith must be rewarded. And in his thoughts, he turns to the goddess and also wonders how she can use her reward. A little while later, the priest says that very soon the new relic will enter Detome. Their main character says that so be it. At this time, the goddess only says that the girl is a liar, and the main character tells the priests, it seems that she is overexerted. I ask if she can leave them, after which she takes the object in which the goddess is located from the branch and asks where the girl is going. The king says that if the young lady is tired, she can return to the imperial palace, and that she should not overdo it. The young lady claims that she is just a little tired and needs a short break, to which the man agrees. He also tells the girl to take care of herself and that she can return at any time. The main character then looks away and agrees, after which they all leave. The girl says she's finally alone. The goddess then asks if the emperor is part of the young lady's family, but he truly treats her like a human being. The young lady then wonders what the goddess means, and the woman asserts that she had previously had bad luck with her families, and the girl was either an orphan or connected with strange people. So let her enjoy this life and not think about falling into eternal sleep. The main character then asks if the goddess was watching her, and the woman replies that of course she was. And she became concerned about Lottie, even though she couldn't help because of her contract. The young lady then realized that she thought she'd been struggling alone her whole life, And there wasn't even a single person caring, but only one goddess. The goddess then asks why the girl decided to carry her away. He also suggests that she hurry up and return, so that she can take the blessing. However, the young lady claims that there is a small matter, and she promised to reward her for her help. The goddess then says that this is true, and asks what the girl needs, and whether she should thank her for her help. The main character then asks if she is really happy, and asks the goddess what the young lady wants. Lottie tells her not to worry, because if the relic is damaged, they can make another one, after which the goddess is surprised. One of the residents is then surprised and tells people to just look. After all, the sacred relic shines so brightly, and this year there will be a great harvest, because it has never seen such a bright glow. And perhaps Datome admires the piety of His Majesty, the Emperor, and the High Priest. And the young lady just thinks that she is just furious because she broke her back. At this time, the boy turns to his little sister and asks what she was doing before, and the girl replies that she was doing nothing special. The main character also looks at the prince and princess and thinks that they are pretending not to hear anything. The girl claims that she only saw that the shrine was damaged and could not do anything, but it seems the high priest was able to fix it. The young lady also thinks that it is good that she came up with an excuse in advance, because if they find out about what happened, she will be under close surveillance. The girl also remembers asking the high priest if he could tell the whole story about all her knowledge from the dream. The man then said that it was good, and for a start, their Temple of Datome would always be on Her Highness's side, no matter what happened. And the young lady thinks that this is very good, and also that it is not a big deal if the relic is dropped a couple of times, because she has another shrine, and unfortunately, each relic has not only divine power, but also the power of one of the gods. Where the relic of the sun is located, there are many clear days, and where the relic of wine is located, high-quality wine is produced there, and where the relic of Datome is located, there is natural abundance. And absolutely, any crops grow well, so the girl is going to plant medicinal herbs in her garden, and then she can become healthy. But then the main character is a little surprised when she looks into the crowd. Then, she sees a familiar person and thinks that she can't possibly know anyone there. The priest at this time wishes eternal prosperity and peace to Pandarion and the Temple of Datome. The young man at this time turns to his sister and says that they are finished, and the young lady asks what it is and whether it is possible that he was still alive. After which the girl runs off somewhere, and the young man asks where she's going. Meanwhile, the girl is just making her way through the crowd, and she screams for them to wait a minute, and also to let her pass, after which she also screams for this person to wait. A little while later, the young lady is already trying to catch her breath and is also wondering where she is now. The girl also stands near the fence, wondering what she should do. However, at that very moment, someone addresses Her Highness and claims that this is forbidden territory. The main character then turns around and thanks the lady but doesn't know how to address her. At this point, the girl comes closer and says that she is Mrs. Floyd, or more precisely, the Marquise Floyd, named Melius. The young lady then says that it is clear, and she is the daughter of the Floyd family, but then the girl remembers this Marquise, and she thinks he's not the best person, so she needs to run away quickly. The girl says she's glad the Marquise recognized hers. Well, it's time for her to go back. However, when the young lady goes in one direction, the Marquise blocks her. But when she returns to the other, the Marquise still won't let her go. Lottie asks if the lady has anything to say. And after this, the girl turns to Her Highness and says that of course, and in fact she wants to talk to her. The main character realizes that this girl was following her, and then asks what she wants to say. The girl asks if Her Highness really doesn't remember her, but then they could meet again. The pink-haired lady claims her name is Melia, and she is Her Highness's best friend. The main character then wonders what kind of nonsense this girl was saying. It's just awful. Melia claims they used to have tea parties and trips out of town together, and Her Highness even bought a dress for her, after which the main character wonders what she is talking about. But until recently, she only had 4 dresses, and the girl wonders if she really gave her a gift, even though the only food in the palace was sprouted potatoes. But now the young lady says that's how it should be when they were close. The girl replies that yes, that's true. After all, Her Highness even gave her a necklace, but she doesn't wear it often because it matches all my dresses. Lottie thinks that you just have to look at her, and also says that this can happen. Melia claims that she is very happy and knew that Her Highness would say exactly this. Well then, the girl squeezes the young lady's hand, and the latter thinks it's very painful. Melia later claims that in truth she was very worried and wonders if Her Highness has even forgotten about her. But the girl also says that it's okay, because it won't change their relationship and Her Highness is her best friend. The main character at this time turns to Lady Floyd and then says that she is disrespectful. The girl is very surprised by this and asks if Her Highness is talking about her. And Lottie replies that she thinks that because the girl is still young, she is poorly trained in etiquette, and she tells Lady Floyd that she is not her friend, and that maybe they were close in the past. But who dares to touch a member of the imperial family first? Melia is a little surprised by this, and Lottie says that no matter how high-ranking an aristocrat is, the Marquise has no right to touch a member of the imperial family, and she should also know her place. The young lady also asks if the girl is familiar with Baron Leold Dean, after which the young lady says that she knows him but is interested. Why is Her Highness asking about him? Lottie replies that she wants to report that there are rumors that Baron Dean has embezzled imperial funds and jewels, and also among them was a precious necklace presented by His Majesty the Emperor. The girl then, with shaking hands, asks if Her Highness could tell her what kind of necklace it was, and the main character replies that it's a beautiful pearl necklace. The lady with pink hair is then very surprised, after which everyone tells him that she remembered an urgent matter, so she asks for forgiveness, and she will go first. Lottie realizes that she was simply making an assumption. She was curious why Baron Dean wasn't afraid of Marquise Floyd, and he also wonders if it's all about Lady Floyd. This necklace was given to none other than the Emperor, essentially giving it to Marcus Floyd, and the girl claims that this is all very annoying. A short time later, she returns to her palace. The boy then points his finger at something and asks his sister what it is. The main character moves closer to the window and asks what he's talking about. The boy points to a branch. The young lady insists it's nothing special, and that it's something similar to fertilizer. The young man then says that this fertilizer is very strange, and the goddess in the kingdom of the gods at this time is almost crying from the way her artifact is being treated. The protagonist realizes that since she and Akron became closer, their relationship has become more tender. She also turns to the boy and asks how he is doing with His Majesty. The young man replies that he and his father had recently been on a short trip, and he had said that if Akron performed well in fencing, he would give him a sword. The young lady then smiles and realizes that the boy had always called his father His Majesty before, but now he addresses him as Dad. The Emperor, although belatedly, seems to want to improve their relationship, and so he sends the girl all sorts of gifts. Sometimes he understands, but not always. However, one thing is certain, and this is the thing: the Emperor's insomnia can no longer be ignored, because judging by the rare meetings, his condition is worse than she thought. The man must start taking medication, or else things will get even worse. At that moment, someone knocks on the door, and their protagonist tells the person to come in, after which a boy comes in and greets Her Highness. But there he sees Akron, who looks at him coldly. Lottie asks what happened, and Raven tries to answer, but then the prince interrupts him, and she asks what the guy is doing in his sister's palace. However, at that very moment, the main character hits him on the head. The young man then asks why she did this, and the young lady claims that one cannot talk to strangers like that, and it would be better to ask her sister who this boy is. The guy does this after that, and the main character says that it's good, and let him fill it out as an example, after which she says that they should get to know each other. After all this, young man is the Earl of Ravensale, and she is his guardian. The boy says it is a great honor for him to meet His Highness. Akron also introduces himself and says that he is the second prince, but still looks at the boy coldly and also asks why he is in home clothes and also whether he really lives there. The main character replies that yes, and Lady Sayla is her maid, and Raven is always with her, so they live together. After this, the prince only cries out that he also wants to live with his sister, and slanders her, and asks why he doesn't leave his huge palace and move in with hers, after which she turns to Raven again and asks what happened. The young man replies that there's something he doesn't understand in the textbook, and the young lady asks what it is. The guy then points to one of the parts and says that this is it, after which the main character explains what should be there. And the prince, seeing this, only smirks, and then asks how old the boy is. The young man replies that he is 9, after which the prince only looks at him confidently, He also claims that the older brother will teach the little count everything. Raven then thanks the boy. Akron says they can take a look, then after which the young man shows him how it should be and asks if he understands. Raven replies that it's not quite clear. The protagonist realizes that upon reflection, this is Akron's first interaction with a peer, and she hopes they will become good friends. Meanwhile, the prince insists that everything is fine, and he will explain again. He then does so, but Raven insists that, frankly, he doesn't understand the explanation at all. At this point, someone starts pounding in her head, and the protagonist wonders if it could be Betty, after which she asks if there are any buns left after breakfast, and also if she can bring a snack. Well then, the maid tells Her Highness that the prince has arrived, and the guy enters the room. Akron says that this is Prince Leonard Raven, also greets His Highness, and the main character rises from her seat and asks what brought Prince Leonard there. And he replies that he has a conversational young lady, after which he looks at Akron and says that she has a guest. The young man is a little surprised, then claims they're going to play, and we're just about to move to another room. The prince then asks if that's true and says it's a very good coincidence, then apologizes. Well, the main character says that no, and the guy doesn't need to leave because she doesn't know what happened. But does a person who came without an invitation have the right to decide who should leave? At this time, Akron turns to his sister in shock and asks what she is saying because this is His Highness Prince Leonard, and he didn't come there for no reason. The main character then asks how this is, and also claims that Akron is more important to her. The young man then becomes embarrassed and says he needs to say something else. Then he whispers to his sister that Leonard always comes with a purpose. The girl replies that they had agreed to meet with Akron. She also understands that the guy had been studying diligently for several days, so he could dedicate a whole day to playing with her, and she wonders if she can accept Leonardo, who appeared out of nowhere, because this is unacceptable. Akron claims that he is fine, and the girl will just tell him everything, but later after, which she says that they will go to another room. When these two come out, the main character turns to His Majesty and asks what happened. The guy replies that he heard that her character has changed a lot, and besides, it seems to him that she and Akron have become close. Well, she behaves awkwardly with him, and the main character claims that maybe the reason is that she spends a lot of time with Akron and they help each other. The crown prince then remains silent about the young lady, thinking that everything seems to be going well, after which she asks what really happened. The guy asks if she's fluent in the ancient language of Lundo. The girl is then shocked, wondering who told him this, and also wondering if Her Majesty the former queen really told him. The guy replies that yes, and it happened when he was about to leave the palace. The woman told him to drive by and talk to Lottie, as she might know how to solve his problems. The main character now says that it seems he has a request for her, and the crown prince replies that this is true. However, the young lady claims that she does not understand him at all, and that there must be at least a few people in the imperial palace who speak the Lundo language, so Lottie asks why he came to her. The man replies that it is because he cannot get help from the scientists at the palace, and the young lady asks if help is really needed in the magic tower. His Highness the Crown Prince replies that yes, and the girl says that this is probably quite secret information. The young lady understands that the imperial palace, the temple, and the magic tower each possess their own power. But even if the relationship between the tower and the palace is currently in good order, it still cannot borrow the palace's scholars. The man then asks what else the young lady has learned, and the girl asks if this is really considered a secret for the time being. She also understands that if it were secret, even if only temporarily, then Her Majesty the Empress would not have sent him to her. His Highness at this time says that the girl is right, and it seems that she has become much smarter. The young lady replies that she was born a genius, and the young man says that he simply did not recognize it before. He also claims that everything is as she suggests, and he had an ancient book in his possession, which he does not want to share with the imperial family or anyone else. Well, if she helps, she will be rewarded, and he will keep her dressage abilities a secret to Lundo. After all, it seems her goal is to live in the shadows. The young lady then smiles and says that His Highness is smart. The boy replies that he's a genius too, and the main character wonders what happened. The guy then asks if she knows anything about magic, and the girl replies that only a little. And the main thing in magic is to create your own circle and study the spell as well as other circles. But it is also important to constantly learn something new, as well as restore magical knowledge that has been lost. The young lady then asks if he found a spell book in Lundo. He replies that it is true, and that the owner of the ancient book spoke Lundo perfectly, as did anyone who knew even a little of it. They tried to translate it, but all failed. The girl then asks where this ancient book is, after which, in shock, she says that this can't be, and does she really need to get into the magic tower? The young lady also thinks that he must have gone crazy, and of course, if he uses teleportation, it will be fast. But it is so problematic, after which the girl states that she will not go. However, the prince says that His Majesty the Emperor said that she is looking for a good medicine, and if she translates the book perfectly, then he will give her a leaf from the world tree that is kept in the tower. The main character, hearing this, immediately asks when they can leave, and a little while later, she is already breathing heavily. The maid turns to Her Highness and asks if everything is all right with her, and if perhaps she should take a rest. The Crown Prince claims that the tower is very close, and it is better to get there and rest there rather than stop there. The girl then says that His Highness Leonard is right, because it's about 2 hours from there to the tower. She fears that the enemy might use the teleporter to attack, as there's quite a distance between the teleporter and the tower. And of course, there's a magic circle located in the tower itself, but only wizards can use it. Now the young lady thanks the maid for her care. Betty replies that it's nothing and asks if the mistress would like some water. The girl replies that no, she's fine, and also asks if the maid needs anything. Betty replies that no, and that she's quite strong. The heir apparent suggests they leave, as he wants to get there quickly, to which the young lady agrees. And they begin to drive. Leonard then turns to Lottie and claims that he thought her maid needed a lot of training. He also says that a girl shouldn't be too friendly with the servants. The young lady then asks if this is true about the prince, who replies that the same applies to Akron. After all, if you spoil him too much, he will never grow up, and it is nonsense when a maid feels comfortable in front of the imperial family. The main character then thinks about what he is talking about, and also claims that they will talk about Betty later. The girl claims that in private conversations, she will do what she wants, and that Akron is a child who needs to be cared for before becoming part of the imperial family. However, the prince claims the girl is talking about things she doesn't know, and a person at the top needs dignity above all else. The girl argues that a person at the top is more likely to need support. His Highness then says no, and the girl will soon find out. Lottie then realizes that something seems to be happening already, and that's why he's so nervous. The girl also wonders if a 20-year-old fifth circle wizard can't afford to live peacefully. Well then, the young lady thinks that such actions are explained, after which the carriage shakes a little, and the young lady immediately jumps up from her seat, and she screams softly, then falls on His Highness and says she fell. Blin then asks if she's okay, and the girl replies that she is. Afterwards, she touches him and thinks it's worth taking a look. Then, using her powers, the young lady tests the boy's magic circle and sees that there's a crack in it. This circle is created to accumulate mana around the heart, and a crack in it means that mana is leaking out, and it also means that the owner cannot cultivate. A little while later, Prince Leonard is greeted by other magicians, and one of them claims that he heard that he brought a man who speaks the ancient language fluently, and also asks if they will finally receive a translation of the book. The guy replies that this is true, and that the former empress personally recommended her. One of the magicians asserts that Her Majesty's opinion is trustworthy, after which the prince extends his hand to the young lady and speaks. That this is Lottie Pandarian. She is the second princess, and this child is his translator. The mages are then shocked, wondering if this princess is really that stupid. A long time later, the young lady's maid only sulks, and he also says that the lady just came to them, and they made such faces and they are stupid as potatoes. The main character then thanks the girl for being angry on her behalf, but claims that if she helps them, even just once, they will change their minds. The young lady also understands that in any case, this won't go beyond the tower walls. Betty turns to the princess and asks if she's better than them already, to which the girl replies that she is, and that she's much better after the medicine and rest. She also understands that the wizard also helped her recover, and then the wizard dealt with it very easily, but Leonard just watched hers. And apparently, his problem with the circle is quite serious. At this point, someone apologizes to Her Highness and asks if he can come in. The girl tells him to come in, after which the magician enters the room and claims that he wanted to know how the young lady was feeling. The girl, smiling, replies that it's only thanks to him that she's feeling so much better, and the man says that's good. He also apologizes for his insolence, but asks Her Highness if she can definitely begin translating the book. The young lady then asks if everyone is interested in what skills she has. The man replies that none of them expected her arrival, and apologizes for thinking badly of her. The main character then thinks that she understands everything, and just a couple of months ago she was an insignificant mudblood, and today she arrived as a translator from an ancient language, and their doubts are completely justified. The young lady says that everything is fine, and that the driving force of wizards is their insatiable curiosity. The man then says that Her Highness knows these words, and the girl replies that yes, she has read several books on the history of the magic tower, and this phrase has sunk into her soul. The magician then claims that in the end, this phrase is nothing more than the ideology of the magic tower, and endlessly explore and endlessly practice. The girl then compliments the magician and asserts that endlessly marvel at all the truths of the world, and then he will tell you the right answer. The man then realizes that he didn't think the girl would remember everything, after which he claims that Her Highness is a good person. And he's confident those below will soon learn of this, the girl. Then thanks the man for his support, and the man then tells Her Highness to follow him. Then they head down the corridor, and the girl thinks that a lot has changed there, and she also thinks that she really wants to visit her laboratory at least once. Afterwards, they pass by the paintings, and the man claims that these are the wonderful people who led their tower. They were all amazing and wonderful, and if even one of them hadn't existed, the tower might not exist today. The protagonist then looks at one of the paintings and asks if it could be the Archmage Carmel. The man replies that she was a sorcerer of the 8th circle and was well versed in the study and interpretation of ancient magic. Much of the ancient magic of the recorded tower was restored by hers. The main character then becomes a little embarrassed and says that she is an outstanding person, and the man claims that the princess is right, because this woman is the one Leonard admires the most. The main character then asks, a little surprised, if it's really an attack, and also thinks that Carmel was an ordinary commoner, and wonders if she's really a role model for Leonard. The magician then asks if it is really that surprising. Hello, the girl replies that no, and she just thought that he would look up to others, for example, to that person over there. After which the girl points to one of the portraits and asks if this man was not the greatest wizard of his time, because judging by what she heard, he easily used high-level magic. The man replies that this is true, but claims that Leonard prefers Archmage Carmel. The young lady then asks why this is so, and the man replies that it is because Carmel created more magic needed for everyday life than for fighting, such as a spell that gives a small light in the dark, and a spell that helps you find a village when you are lost. The spells she created were nothing special to wizards, and in those days all wizards were very aggressive and dangerous. However, as the magic created by Carmel spread among people, the image of wizards in the tower slowly changed, and the man claims that even wizards of the 1st circle could use its magic due to its simplicity, and so many came to the tower. Thanks to this, the tower grew even larger. While he can't say she was good only in this form, her offensive magic abilities were also high. The young lady then mentally asks him to stop. The man claims that Leonard once told him that if he could meet Carmel, he would definitely do it, and the girl after this becomes very embarrassed and understands that she cannot say that this is one of her past personalities, so she asks him to stop. After which, the main character says that they need to hurry because they have been expected for a long time, to which the man agrees. Then they enter one of the rooms, and the magician says they need to go there. One of the men then says they've arrived, and the other insists they've been waiting for them, after which he hands over the book and claims that it is an ancient book that they are asking to be translated. After which, the main character realizes in shock that this is her diary. It says she managed to eat a stew from the seasonal menu today, and it was delicious. And this restaurant closed because the building collapsed due to an earthquake, and surprisingly, but she teamed up with other regular customers to create a new restaurant, but the owner seems to be puzzled by something. Before she fell into eternal sleep, she confessed to her that she was very glad when the restaurant closed because she could no longer work, but because of them, everything went back to the way it was before, but she could not lose the delicious stew. Now, the young lady realizes that she should burn the diary instead of translating it. Mac then turns to Her Highness and asks if she's sure she can translate the book, as she can take as much time as she needs. The girl then replies that she will, and that it only takes a little bit more. But then the young lady realizes that she wrote in the ancient language on purpose, so that no one could understand her, but she must do this in order to obtain the leaves of the world tree. The girl also reads the next page, which says that at that time Roy was very drunk and told her about magic, and she also wondered what was there. And now the young lady remembers that there was dragon magic and Pendrade. He was a red dragon he was friends with, and they had many fights with, and he has been dormant for hundreds of years, and Roy is the name he used when he was human. The girl also understands that in order not to forget the ancient magic spell that she heard from him, she wrote it down somewhere. The source of magic was the dragon, and all the first spells were knowledge passed down from the dragon to man. The young lady wrote it all down, so now she's the winner. At this point, His Highness turns to the young lady and asks if this is too difficult. The girl replies that no, it is possible. The guy claims that he will run away in secret, that she has such abilities, and can even swear to the correspondence of the magic tower. Lottie replies that there's no need, and she'll translate everything. Then one of the mages addresses His Highness and asserts that nothing happened in the tower today. The young lady then thinks that it would be nice if it were so, after which she thinks that it is worth trying, after which she begins to read what is written there. Well, instead of talking about how she suffered from a hangover, the girl reads that fortunately, she found the dragon's diary. Roy is the diary's owner, and Pendrade is the dragon's name. One of the mages then shocked claims he heard Pendrade befriend a human before falling asleep. The girl also claims that they say this diary was a gift for this man, but it says Dear Doris. The girl then claims that she doesn't understand magic forms well, so she will try to copy it. The girl also understands that there is magic there for getting rid of a hangover and magic for leg pain after long walks. At this time, two magicians are watching the girl write something and say that this formula and language are perfect no matter how you look at it. And it even smells like ancient magic. The girl then mentally asks him to stop. The other mage then apologizes and says that they are very worried, but this is dragon magic, and this is the first time since Archmage Carmel discovered it. The girl understands that dragons are very rare creatures now, so it is understandable that dragon magic is new to them. The young lady then hands over one of the sheets of paper and states that it is the last one, after which the man thanks her. His Highness then looks at this, and the young lady understands that he is looking for a way to seal the crack in the circle. And if she now had the abilities from her past life, then everything would be simpler. But to heal Leonard, you need to be at least 8th in the circle, and the girl thinks that only the head of the tower can do this, after which she wonders who is the master in the tower now. At this time, His Highness asks if she has translated everything, and the girl replies that this is all she could translate, and if she missed something. But then the main character sees a flower and wonders what it is. It says don't forget, because her laboratory is located to the right of the golden arrow. The young lady then wonders what it was, and whether it was herbs or alcohol. The magician then suggests they call it a day and tells Lottie to get some rest. The girl then asks if she can take the book with her, since she would rather read it in her room. The two magicians then tell Her Highness that of course, and she can take her time. One of the men then claims that he will escort Her Highness to her room, while the Crown Prince apologizes, but claims that he is going to his room. After this, the young lady goes to her room, but she turns to Mr. Podrell, and the man asks, "What is it?" The young lady asks where the master of the magic tower is now. The man replies that he is right there, and that he, Podrell Galania, is the master of the tower. The main character then asks in shock what he is talking about, and realizes that this man is completely different from the masters she knew, and whether he is too young to be the head of the tower. The master at this time claims that he is actually quite old, but physical training sometimes turns back time. The girl then thinks that this is not what is important now, and also claims that she would like to tell him something, and she knows what state Leonard is in now. The man is then very surprised, and the young lady claims it was an accident, and Leonard doesn't know about it. The master claims he picked it up, but asks why the girl brought it up, and the young lady claims she didn't mention it sooner. But an ancient book tells how to restore a cracked circle. The master then asks if this is true, and the young lady points out that, yes, it's a bit dangerous to tell about it there. After which, the master asks if the girl would like to have a cup of tea in his room, and the young lady with a smile on her face replies that, of course, after which they come to the man's room, or he claims that he hopes the young league will like it, and he also thinks that he will be able to give her the leaves of the world tree only the day after tomorrow. First, he wants to confirm the translation of the ancient magic. The girl then says yes. The man asks Her Highness how the circle can be restored, and he's curious. The girl then asserts that first and foremost, she wants to know what happened to Prince Leonard. The master, then a little puzzled, thinks whether he should tell about the young lady, but he insists that there is no need to worry too much. And she's not there just to admire the beauty of the tower. And Leonard is sleeping now. And the girl asks if this is true. The man then claims she's right, and asks if she knows a man named Aldo Lotti, replies no. And she doesn't care. The man claims Aldo is the one who entered the tower with Leonard. They quickly became friends, because they were the same age and had similar talents, and they ended up in the tower at the same time. Aldo was a commoner, but in their tower, talent was valued above status, and they had been friends for a long time. He also thought that raising such wizards would give the tower a bright future. But even their strong bond turned out to be easy to break, and at some point Leonard began to get ahead of his friend, which is why Aldo developed an inferiority complex. And the situation was getting worse due to Leonardo's narrowing horizons. And while the prince was struggling to reach the sixth circle, Aldo was on the fourth, and the gap between them only widened. Then it happened, and from somewhere unknown, Aldo got petals from the delphinium tree. Well, he fed them to Leonard, and fortunately, the leaves did not plunge His Highness into eternal sleep. Well, they enraged the mana in his hotel, and fortunately, Julia's people managed to spit them out in time, while his circle had already cracked. Having dealt with Aldo according to the rules of the tower, he put all his efforts into restoring Leonard's circle. But the situation was getting worse and worse, and he even asked for help from the archipelago, and from the tower on another continent. But he was refused. The main character then says that this is how she understands, that now she understands Leonard's attitude towards commoners, and that everything is much more serious than she thought. The girl also understands that what Leonard needs now is to seal the crack and expand his horizons, and if she could use her power from her past life, for at least 5 minutes, the situation would be easily resolved. At this point, the Archmage turns to Her Highness and asks what method for restoring the circle is described in the book. The young lady replies that it says to infuse mana until the cracked circle is restored. She understands that this method is ignorant, but it is the only one and only one person can pour in mana, and in case of failure, the crack will only get bigger. Padril then sighs and says that it seems like this is the only way, and every part of him wants to start. But he's only on the 7th circle now, so the chance of success is only 50%. And he could try if there was someone higher up. The girl then wonders if there's anything she can do to help, but the man insists it's already very late, and he'll escort Her Highness to her room. The girl then says, "Everything's fine," after which someone knocks on the room, and the young lady says that it is time, and claims that he has a guest, after which she heads to the door, and claims that she will go then. However, when the girl opens the door, she sees Prince Leonardo there, and he asks if he can go. Lottie replies that of course they can talk alone, and she'll go too. Then the young lady closes the door to the room and looks around, wondering if anyone is there. The girl also realizes that the laboratory she used when she was Carmel is very close by, after which the girl approaches this door, and when she puts her hand on it, she realizes that she does not feel any mana, and it also seems that there are no protective spells there. But it's good that she worked next to the master's room, because who would rob a laboratory that is very close to the master of the magic tower, after which the young lady gives the name, which is her password. And he opens the door. When the young lady steps inside, she thinks everything is as before, but it seems like it was somewhere out there. After which the girl finds a bottle with a potion, and with a smirk on her face says that now it's time to set Leonard's brains straight. The tower master at this time turns to Leonard, and states that he sincerely hopes that he will not give up magic, because this is the path he has walked for so long, and the path that he truly loves. The boy tells the teacher that it was so hard for him. The teacher then says he knows, and that because of Aldo, the boy had to go through a lot. However, the young man cries out that this is not so, after which he claims that even before Aldo's betrayal, things were not easy for him. When the boy was on the fifth circle, he was completely sure that he had climbed to the top, which would have taken anyone else a lifetime to reach, and he firmly believed that he would become a powerful archmage. Well then, one mistake happened, and then another, and after several such mistakes, he was ready to plunge into eternal sleep in order to achieve his goal, that is the sixth level. Gritting his teeth, he continued. And that was all because Aldo was supporting him. And this guy was right when he said that if he couldn't rise even higher, he would be stuck there for the rest of his life. And what has already come out of this? There is a crack in his circle, and they have not been able to find a cure for it for a very long time, after which the young man tells the teacher he can't take it anymore. The master then tells Leonard to calm the council, saying he just needs a little freedom from the burden, but the boy cries out, "What can he do?" After all looking around, he sees only impenetrable darkness. At that very moment, someone bursts into the room and screams that everything is wrong. It turns out to be Lottie with the potion. The master then asks Her Highness if she hasn't gone to her room, and the girl replies that she found something better, and she has a gift for Leonard. So he's a little surprised and asks if it's really a gift for him, but the girl just opens the jar of potion. Then she pours it on the prince's head. The man then screams at her, "What is she doing?" And the boy just collapses to the ground. After he opens his eyes, he sees a woman greeting him. He wonders if it's Archmage Carmel, but also why she's there. At this time, the woman says that the weather is nice, and asks if it is, and the guy just looks at her in surprise. After which, the woman hits him on the shoulders, and tells him to get up, and not to waste the time that the other woman gave him. The young man then becomes confused, and thinks what the other she means, after which he asks what he needs to do, and the woman asks if he asks what two magicians should do when they meet, after which she claims to fight, and begins using magic. The young man shocked wonders if she really cast the spell without a word, and cries out that he can't use magic right now. But the woman replies that no, and she knows that he can, because he will fall into eternal sleep if he does not begin to act. The young man then tries to create a magical barrier, but when the woman attacks him, the barrier collapses. The guy then thinks that if he had reached level 6, everything might have been different, and the woman then asks if he now thinks that if he had reached level 6, there would be no point in trying to get over her. Well, if he's at level 6, then she's at level 7, after which the woman uses her magic, and the guy is hit a lot. The woman claims that if he had the 8th level, she would have used the 9th. He asks if the guy knows what his problem is, after which he claims he's neglecting what he's achieved so far. The young man then tries to object, and the woman just tells him to appreciate what he has now, and also to remember it. The young man, almost in tears, agreed, and the woman asked what she would say to herself now. The young man replied that he saw the sky, and also his own pitiful reflection, and the woman says that's good. So then he needs to get his head straight. Brother's master, in shock, asks what Her Highness did and whether that red liquid is real. The main character replies that it is difficult for her to speak, and that she is breathing heavily, and the man understands that just a minute ago everything was fine with her, but now it is as if she is plunging into an eternal sleep. The girl just starts to fall off her feet and tells Mr. Podrel that this is a secret miracle, and let him think that this will never happen again. The man then tells Her Highness that he understands, and the girl says fine, and she also claims that the prince will not refuse this path, and she wanted to ask him for a favor, after which today, in the magic tower. The man just continues insisting it didn't happen. He realizes he has no idea what happened today, but he knows for sure it won't happen again, and he's confident the girl saved him. So now he claims that it was surprisingly quiet in the magic tower today, and asks if that is true. The girl says that she agrees, and it was quite quiet, after which she leaves, and the master wonders if he is really dealing with a child. And obviously she was a naive child who never left the confines of the imperial palace, but now he sees her as an experienced person who has seen a lot in her life and so many amazing things in the world. Then the man approaches Prince Leonard and thinks that he needs to be moved, but when he touches the guy, he is shocked, and he realizes that his magic circle has been restored. Meanwhile, the main character is walking down the hallway, breathing heavily. She realizes that this time it was really hard, and she used the red liquid that she hid when she was still Carmel. Based on it, she made several elixirs that increased mana, and finally cast an illusion spell to have the opportunity to meet Carmel. So if she were to be reborn in the body of a human, gifted with magic, this red liquid could easily extend her life. But she spent it all on someone else, and the first thought that came to her mind when she found the bottle was that she could pretend that she didn't know anything and leave it to you. Well, she has grown old and soft, but now she has to be very careful. And the reason why she suffered so much is simple, and this is what Carmel's red liquid was not enough for, and she added her own, so she had to just become the illusion of Carmel. But the girl still thinks that it was just an illusion. But even so, the body was overstrained. However, it seems that everything went well, and it seemed to her that the thoughts in Leonard's head became clear again. He also opened his eyes, and now he will never give up the magical path so easily. Now the young lady thinks about how tired she is, and realizes she needs just a little rest. And then she closes her eyes. When she opens them, she realizes that her head is spinning, and in front of her, she sees a boy, who addresses her as a teacher and also asks why she saved him, because the teacher could have simply allowed him to plunge into eternal sleep. The girl replies that adults are obliged to help children and guide them as well. The boy is her only student and must do well. The young man then, with tears in his eyes, says that the teacher can't die, because she's a genius, so she must live. However, the girl only tells Lionel to take care of himself, after which she completely plunges into eternal sleep. The young man then insisted that he would definitely find his teacher, the protagonist, then wonders if she told him she would be reborn. Now she jumps up and screams that she's not. Betty, seeing this, asks if Miss Lottie is okay, and the main character realizes that she's obviously fallen into an eternal sleep. Lying on the ground in the cold rain, she still doesn't understand who this maid is and how she knows her name. And also, why is her name Lottie? And does she think that after reincarnation, the name remains the same? Betty then tells the girl to wait just a minute, because she will bring His Highness Leonard. The young lady then thinks of these names, and then addresses Betty by name. And the maid immediately turns around and addresses Miss Lottie with a smile on her face. The protagonist then remembers that this is true, and that Betty is after all her maid. Now the young lady also says that there's no need to go to Prince Leonard. And Betty asks if the mistress is sure, too, which she replies that yes, and she just woke up, so she was lost in her thoughts. The girl also asks if the maid can give her a glass of water. The maid then hands it over and tells the miss to drink slowly. The young lady does so, then sighs with a smile on her face. But then he asks Betty how long she lost consciousness for this time, but the maid only gets angry and claims that the mistress speaks as if she knew she would fall. The young lady then wonders when the maid became so smart, after which she claims that it was not just some kind of premonition. However, Betty says that, of course, the lady didn't know, but for some reason, she decided to sit down right there in the hallway. The girl also tells Miss Lottie that she really hates it, after which the maid comes out and slams the door, and the main character wonders if she is angry. But Betty then opens the door and claims that she didn't mean to slam the door so loudly, it was just the wind. The young lady smiles after this, and also realizes that she never thought that she would dream of her first life. And even Lionel appeared there. This young man is her first and last disciple, and it is probably because of the man she saw in the temple. More precisely, he looked like her student, only older. And the girl understands that they are similar in appearance, but they are different people, since Lionel fell into eternal sleep at least 1,000 years ago. At this moment, someone addresses Her Highness and asks if she can spare him a moment. The girl realizes it's Padrel's voice and replies yes. The man then comes in and apologizes, telling the young lady to lie down because he knows she's not feeling well. The girl replies that yes, she asks for his forgiveness for that. He also wonders if something has happened. The man states that he first wants to thank the young lady and then bows, and he offers his gratitude as the master of the magic tower and Leonard's teacher. But the young lady then claims that nothing happened to the magic tower, and the man replies that this is true, nothing happened, but he will never forget that nothing happened. The main character then thinks that now, if necessary, not only the temple, but also the magic tower is on her side, after which she still asks why the archmage came to her, and the man claims that they will start with the fact that she should be curious, after which he claims that Leonard's condition has improved, and not only that the circle has been restored, but now his body is overflowing with mana, and also in the future he will become even stronger. The main character then says that she is very happy, and the man hands her a container with something and claims that it is a gift for Her Highness. The girl then asks if this is really a leaf from the world tree, and the man replies that it is. When the young lady looks at them, then she understands that these are real leaves of the world tree, but she tried so hard to get at least one, and the world tree is a giant tree, and it is the only one that she has not seen in any of her past lives. And the reason for this is simple. After all, it grows in the territory of the High Elves, and the Alphas are divided into 3 species. The first is the species about which much is known, and she even transformed into one of them. The second kind are the Dark Alphas, and they say that they are corrupted by the power of darkness, but she has not seen them, so she cannot say for sure. And finally, there are the High Elves. They are also the most arrogant and seemingly immortal. These elves do not interact with most other races, and do not leave the world tree's habitat. One day, a girl accidentally found the bark of the world tree and was nearly killed by a squad sent in pursuit. From that moment on, she gave up and now can't believe it happened. Well, the young lady then looks into the box and thinks what it is, after which she turns to Mr. Podrel and claims that the girl is right, and this is the fruit of the world tree. The main character then says in shock that her reward is only leaves, but the Archmage replies that the raft is from his personal gratitude to her, and he heard that the young lady is in poor health, so let her accept his gift. The main character then kisses the box and says she will accept it with great gratitude. Afterwards, she asks Mr. Podrel where he got it from. The man says he doesn't know if the young lady will believe him, but long ago he helped a man lying on the side of the road. The protagonist wonders what kind of road this is, where they practically hand out rights to the imperial throne. The girl also wondered if it was a high elf. The man replied that it was not, and that it was an ordinary girl. She also said that she was going to her parents' house to see the child, but she ran out of money, which is why she got into trouble. He decided to support her and took her to the port of Shirav. The main character asks if he took her there. He also understands that the port of Shirav is a place where ships departing for other continents dock. The man claims that he received this fruit for his help and thinks that she got it from her distant ancestors. The young lady then understands what it is, perhaps, and no matter how arrogant the alpha may be, sometimes they get out into the human world. The man then claims that he seems to have stayed too long with the girl, so he asks for forgiveness, and the young lady says that nothing happened, and his story was interesting. Podrel also says that Leonard will visit her tomorrow, and that he is currently meditating. The young lady then says that he definitely will. And because of the red liquid she gave him, his body is overflowing with mana, and it's logical that he creates a new circle to prevent it from leaking out. Meanwhile, the man tells the girl to get some rest, and when he emerges, the main character is overjoyed and says she succeeded. The girl realizes she's received not only the world tree's flight, but also the fruit. However, she's also wondering how best to use them, and it seems Roy told her something, after which the young lady remembers that the best way is to dry the leaves and make tea. A little while later, the maid comes into the mistress's room and asks if she can come in. The girl replies that yes, after which he asks if Betty can boil water, to which she usually answers yes. A little while later, the main character is already making tea from these leaves, and the maid is surprised and asks what this means since it has such a pleasant aroma. The main character then agrees and understands that she feels something like this for the first time, and the aroma is delicate cool, but at the same time refreshing. But she also wonders why this smell evokes so much nostalgia. After which the main character invites the maid to have a drink together, and she agrees. And then they drink. The young lady is then a little surprised, and the maid asks what kind of tea it is. All the fatigue that has accumulated over her life seems to have begun to melt away, and she feels light, so she asks Miss Lottie what she will say. The girl also thinks whether she is talking about lightness and fatigue, after which she thinks that all this is not true, and she feels like she's about to fly, and she could even run a marathon. The girl understands that even Mandrake's potion wouldn't have produced such effects, and there's nothing better for her than the leaves of the world tree. Well, the girl wonders why it is that the leaves of the world tree are one of the most difficult to obtain medicines, but it is impossible to even buy it no matter how much money you have. And what's even more surprising is that she is a simple human, not a representative of another race, but the best medicine for her is a byproduct of the world tree. Each race has its own ideal medicine, and dwarves generally respond well to medicines based on roots with strong earth energy. For mermaids, the best medicines are those based on the power of water, and for humans, anything of good quality is suitable, especially if you take a large amount. The maid turns to Miss Lottie and asks if something is wrong, and the girl replies that it is not. The young lady also asks when they are going to the palace. The girl replies that His Highness Leonard said he is currently busy training. He asks if the lady wants to wait until the end and return with him. The protagonist then thinks no, and that Leonardo will still be working hard to strengthen his circles for a long time, so he won't be able to go with them. But she needs to see him, so she'll go after that. When the boy finishes meditating and goes to the emperor, she must plead with him to save the world tree. The girl also understands that she will return to the imperial family as soon as possible. A short time later, someone asks if Princess Lottie has left the palace. One of the servants replies that yes, indeed, she has. According to the reporter, she left this morning, and it was also reported that Prince Leonard went with her. The man then asks what he is talking about, and the servant states that they assume the destination is this magical tower, but they still haven't figured out the reason. Then the servant also asks if they should send spies to the tower, and the man replies that if the magicians catch them, it will end badly. And although both the temple and the tower have great power, they cannot be turned into enemies. But it's a completely different matter if the wizards from the tower voluntarily tell them the reason for the princess's arrival, and the man asks if this is true. The servant then says that he too will question one of the magicians under the pretext of discussing the situation with money. The man then thinks about what kind of vile creature Lottie Pendarian is, and he thought that dealing with her would be easy, and no one would suspect anything about her plunging into eternal sleep if everyone knew how sick her body was. He also remembers how he told His Majesty that he couldn't do this, and he didn't even know whose child it was, and he also understands that he could easily isolate the girl, and all that was left was to quickly trample her, and that's it. But suddenly, the young lady cleared her name of the poisoning accusations, and thus attracted the attention of the emperor. She also dealt with Baron Dean and caught smugglers in an illegal gambling house, for which he had to pay, but fortunately the damage was small, and then his stupid daughter made a mistake. The girl then asked how she could know that this pearl necklace was given to her by His Majesty the Emperor, and the man understood that he had told his daughter not to take what the Baron brought, but to immediately give it to him. And he just needs to fix everything, so he now tells Luga to tell him to get it done by the end of the day. The young man then asks if the master is sure, since a little earlier he said that it was not worth breaking into the magic tower. The man then says that this is true, but they have nothing in common with these stupid monsters. The main character at this time turns to Leonard and states that she heard he finished his training at dawn, and also asks if he feels better. The guy replies that he feels very well. The young lady then thinks that this seems true, but she wants to check just in case. Then she asks if the prince can give her his hand. The young man replies, of course, and extends his hand. But he also looks at the young lady and asks why it seems to him that Lottie is very similar to her, and the girl thinks that he should guess. After she gets into the carriage, she asks the guy if he knows what Padrell told about it. That Archmage Carmel was a commoner. The crown prince is a little surprised after this, but then smiles and says it's fine. He also bids farewell and declares that as soon as he's finished with his business, there he'll come to the imperial palace. Then the main character and the maid leave, and the girl insists that 20 years is a long time. The maid asks what her mistress is talking about, and the main character replies that no, and she thinks that in 10 years, a new archmage will appear, and the girl understands that he will be on her side, because then she will use him whenever she wants. Betty, meanwhile, claims that Miss Lottie's face frightens her. Afterwards, the girl also asks the mistress if she thinks they're a bit short on company. The girl replies that it is indeed a bit short, and also understands that she asked her to keep her knowledge of the Lundo language a secret, which is why there are so few people. Well, the maid claims that this is not a problem, and that it is not far from the imperial palace to the teleportation magic circle, and they are on the territory of the magic tower, and if problems arise, the magicians will immediately come to their aid. Betty then says with a smile on her face that that's good, and asks if she told Miss Lottie about Raven last time. After that, they talk about something else, but suddenly the carriage shakes. The young lady then asks the knight what happened, and he replies that it looks like they have a problem with the teleportation circle. The young lady then asks what the problem is, but when she looks out and sees the circle, she wonders if someone has damaged it, and she also doesn't understand where the responsible magicians have gone. The young lady is also shocked, thinking that it was not done with a sword, and that the marks are rough and from blunt objects. At that very moment, something sharp hits the carriage, and the maid immediately screams, after which she completely faints, and the main character worries about Betty. And then she hears some strange sounds. Someone then screams for the man to fall into eternal sleep, and the young lady wonders where the orcs came from. There are about a dozen of them, and she won't be able to defeat them, but it can't be helped. She can at least examine them. First of all, the helmet's shape also has an engraved pattern. These are the Tekin people, but the girl still does not understand why they left their village and attacked the magic tower. The girl then runs somewhere, after which he climbs onto a platform and thinks that she will leave all this for later, but now she needs to do something else. After which, the young lady cries out in their language that she is in fact Miru's daughter. The girl also asks for it to work. She also understands that when she was an orc, some intelligent beings, including spirits, knew about her essence, and at that time, she told stories to those orcs who were interested in human civilization. However, unfortunately, she fell into eternal sleep in the part where Meru's daughter was revealed. And now the orcs are shocked. One of them screams that he knew it, and the other claims that he believed it. The main character thinks that this is all quite funny, and the orc asks who this person is. The girl then claims that she has nothing to say to the boy, and asks where the tribal leader is now. The orc then asks if the young lady is a wanderer, and the girl replies that she is wondering where the tribe's leader is. However, after this, the orc only gets angry and screams that the great leader fell into the flames, and the people made a lot of fire in their villages 4 days ago. And the children, as well as the old people, wave the sword as they want. The young lady then wonders what madmen decided to set fire to the Taken tribe's village, and why the girl also realizes that the land where the orc tribe settled is Behel. This place is a typical wasteland for humans, and even humans. Furthermore, it's home to many monsters, and the slightest noise immediately draws them all to it. The young lady now says it's clear and asks where the wounded are. However, the ORG claims he heard the wanderer no longer makes medicine, and she was an orc, but now she is a human, and she is also interested in how one can trust that the wanderer will not betray them. The girl then understands his reaction and thinks that it was the people who suddenly broke into their village and destroyed it, after which she comes closer to him and asserts that she will help them. The young lady claims that she hasn't forgotten her gratitude, because long ago the Tekin tribe helped her, and she wants to repay that favor. The orc says that, well, we claim that the wanderer is a precious person, and if they take her, there will be a problem. The girl then looks at one of the orcs and claims that it is not a problem. Then one of them grabs the girl and says they can go faster. The young lady then cries out for him to wait as she'll get seasick, but the orc says there's no time. A little while later, the young lady is already climbing off him, and she's also not feeling well. The orc claims they've arrived. The young lady looks ahead and asks if this is really a cave. Then she goes inside and sees orcs there. One of them then asks in shock if this is really a person, after which he takes a stone in his hand and starts throwing it at her. However, another orc claims that this is the chieftain's guest, whom he brought, after which the orcs are a little surprised. And the main character, a little while later, already goes to the chieftain. He addresses the wanderer, and the girl understands that he speaks pure human speech, and that he is truly a leader. The girl claims that she heard a little from the warrior, but would like to know more, after which she asks what happened. The chieftain claims there was a surprise attack, and the warriors were lured out of the village. Then a grass field was set on fire, and the fire spread instantly. They had no choice but to flee, but the people didn't give up and continued chasing them. The young lady asks if they were being chased, and he replies that they were. And as soon as they got there, the pursuit ceased, but he doesn't know when they won't return. The doctor fell into an eternal sleep along the way, and the children and the elderly suffered greatly. After which, he asks if the wanderer will help them too, and the girl replies that they should leave it to her and also lend her some of their warriors. She is, after all, an herbalist. A short while later, one of the orcs claims to have brought some herbs. However, The main character only gets angry and screams that she told him that he needed to bring leaves with pointed ends, and these ones have smooth tips. The orc then says that they all look the same, and the girl realizes that she asked for medicinal herbs, but they're only carrying poisonous ones. At this time, one of them also comes up and claims that he brought it, and the young lady understands that these are all the herbs she needs. The main character asks if he collected them carefully, after which she says that the orc is a good fellow. After such words, he only becomes embarrassed, and the main character thinks what a cutie he is. Another orc approaches the wanderer and claims he has brought water, and that it is spring water, where she said it was. The young lady then says she can be trusted, and she understands that in fact this territory used to be a training ground for a magic tower, so she knows everything there. Well, even though it is now a restricted area, but nothing has changed. At that moment, one of the orcs screams that the people are pursuing them, and they have gone so far. The other orc then gets angry and asks where they are since he's going. However, the young lady replies that no, and that's not necessary, then tells the warriors to return to the cave and await her orders. The orcs are perplexed and ask what about the enemy since he is close by, but the young lady claims that they will be taken care of. One of the men at this time claims that this area needs to be combed, but his charge asks the captain why they should do this, and weren't they ordered to drive the orcs to the magic tower? The man says that this is so, but the one who gave them this order, this man who can make aristocrats out of them, the man then shocked asks if they can really become nobles. Their captain thinks, well, who's to say he can't be an aristocrat? After all, he's smart, and he immediately realizes that the main point of this order is that all he needs to do is get rid of this mudblood. And he is also sure that the girl is there because they drove the orcs, so that they would finish her off. So all that remains is to make sure that they succeeded, and it's good that he saved this with him. A little while later, one of them screams for the captain to look, because there's a child there. The young lady says she's so scared, and one of the wards claims that there must be orcs nearby, so they need to find them first. But the captain tells them to stop because this girl is their real target. One of the men claims that her clothes look so expensive, and she must be from some noble family. However, the captain tells the man not to worry, as they will go unpunished. After which they approach the young lady, and the girl only tells them to save her. But when the man takes a step forward, the ground beneath him collapses, and the protagonist merely smirks. She realizes that this is where mid-level earth magic was once practiced, and although it looks very ordinary, there's no large hole hidden in the middle. The man being in the pit cries out, "Did she really lure them in on purpose?" And the girl replies that it was definitely she who lured them in. After which the captain cries out, "Does she really think that they won't be able to get out of there?" But the girl only says that, although the hole is deep, and there are a lot of them there, but she still says she's curious if they'll make it out alive. The captain then screams at her to wait and spare them, because then he'll tell her who ordered her assassination. However, the young lady apologizes, claiming that this person is obvious to her. Afterwards, the girl turns to Okul, who obeys, and the young lady merely points to the man she was speaking to, claiming that he's the boss, so let him bring everything he has. The orc then furiously jumps on this guy and screams that they were chasing them, so they need to teach these people a lesson. When they are already dealing with these people, they ask the wanderer whether they should remove the bodies, and the girl replies that no, and she will clean up there herself. Then the orc cries out that they're returning to the tribe. The young lady examining the people's belongings thinks there must be something useful there. Afterwards, she finds a coin and realizes the bandits shouldn't have it. At that moment, one of the orcs turns on the young lady. The girl then asks him if he'll stop pretending. She also understands that he is the only one who was able to find the necessary herbs, although he should not have known what they look like. And besides, he speaks the human language perfectly. After which, the young lady says that she thinks it is time for him to show his true face and addresses him as Lionel. The boy then transforms into his true form and tells the teacher that so much time has passed. The girl realizes that she clearly remembers the first time she met Lionel. He had sunken cheeks and bony hands, and it turned out he could fall into eternal sleep right before her eyes. But his eyes shone with life. And now the girl claims that she is so glad that everything is fine with him, and the young man with a smile on his face says that it is all thanks to the teacher, and if it weren't for her, he wouldn't have been able to survive childhood. The girl replies that this isn't true and that he could have survived even if she hadn't been there. However, the young man replies that everything is not so, and only thanks to the teacher he was able to survive, because he had no one, and no one tried to help him, and she was the only one who did not ignore him. And he only has her. The main character then thinks that when the guy smiles like that, she remembers him as a child. The girl also turns to Lionel, wondering how he survived. She understands that the guy should have long ago fallen into eternal sleep, so she wonders why her student is alive. And unlike her, he reincarnated into his original body every time. The young lady also says that it is so strange, and only some gods are allowed to prolong human life. But neither the main god nor Datome told her anything, and if you gods created someone like her, they would have revealed his identity. Then there's only one thing left, and the young lady wonders if he received this power from an evil god. The girl realizes that even before she was born, the nameless god tried to put her father, who was the main god, into eternal sleep. But he could not defeat him, and was soon defeated. And the main god forgave him. But he was expelled from the divine kingdom to earth, and having united with earthly evil, became an evil god. The young man then claims that he knows what the teacher is worried about, but insists that her student is not so simple. After which the guy snaps his fingers, and at that very moment, a flame lights up in the pit, and the young man claims that he said that he would definitely find her. Lottie understands that he performed magic without a spell or delay, and is most likely a 10th circle magician. But he got rid of the undead bodies in an instant. Lionel says he's taken care of the bandits, so the teacher can return safely. The girl then agrees, but the boy claims he's forgotten. After which, he insists that she shouldn't trust the gods too much, especially the supreme being, the protagonist, then asks why. And the guy wonders if it's not strange, because he continued to look for a teacher in this body, but they could not meet for such a long time. And when he managed to find her every time, she was already lifeless, and this happened absolutely every time. And when the guy touched her body, it was warm, as if she had just plunged into eternal sleep, and the young man was interested in who could so skillfully plunge her into eternal sleep. After which the boy leaves, saying they'll meet again. A little while later, the young lady comes to the orcs in the cave and says they can apply these herbs to the tap and wrap it in cloth. He also hands them others and insists that they should be steeped in boiled water and then drunk. The orc then says that's understandable, and the girl insists that before leaving, she wants to see the tribal leader again. After which, the orc tells the young lady to follow him, and then the girl comes to him waiting, and he thanks her. But the main character claims that she did not come to receive words of gratitude and asks if he is thinking about going to the police. It is a spacious place near Krenis, so there are not many people there, and it is an ideal place for a new settlement. One of the orcs asks why Mentry, and the girl replies that she knows who lives there. And he understands that if the orcs can give him what he wants, then this man will never betray them, and it will be a little expensive. But now she insists she'll talk to him, and he'll give them land and help them build a new village. She also understands that ultimately she's to blame for their misfortune. But then one of the orcs claims that they refuse, and the young lady asks why. The orc replies that they've been there for generations and will find their place and won't leave and will fight. However, the young lady insists that humans will definitely return. The leader replies that they know and people will persecute them and bring them hardships, but they will fight because it is their pride. The girl then thinks that the thing they will never compromise on is their pride, and that cannot be changed. After which the girl says that it's fine, but let them accept the materials that she sends them through her friend, and she won't accept refusal. However, the chief then tells the wanderer to wait, and the young lady asks, "What is it?" And the orc replies that not long ago, there was a small earthquake in Krenis. The girl then claims that this kind of thing happens there all the time, and asks what they are worried about. The chieftain claims that Pendreed is waking up. A short time later, the girl says goodbye to the orc and thanks him. The orc insists they won't forget her, and that the girl saved their tribe, and the protagonist is a little surprised, but then insists it's all because of her. She understands that if only she hadn't gone to the magic tower, the Marquis wouldn't have gotten involved with this tribe. However, the orc cries out that no bad people attacked, they are also victims, and so is she. So the girl shouldn't blame herself. The main character is then a little surprised. But then, with a smile on his face, he agrees and also tells them to go north as soon as the wounded get better. And there is a forest where they can hide for a while. A little while later, the young lady returns to the place where the magic circle should be and realizes that it looks like they are already restoring it. And one of the knights shouts that they are almost finished. The girl also sees herself nearby and realizes it's an illusion spell copying her. The young lady then dispels it and approaches the place where she should be. One of the knights immediately runs up to Her Highness and claims that they can leave now, to which the girl agrees and says that they can go. The young lady also inquires about what happened to the orc tribe. The youth replies that they were pursued and it seems have fled to the east. The girl then realizes that they sent the knights in the opposite direction from them, and Lionel will even take care of that. The young lady understands that the bandits were experienced, and she thinks that they did not leave any traces when they got there. But the territory of the Magic Tower is a place where you can find any speck of dust, and she is sure that very soon they will find traces left by people, so she asks them to quickly find them and deal with this for her. The knight then claims that the Magic Tower has prepared a new carriage for the girl, instead of the damaged one, after which she thanks him and fixes the carriage, and also thinks that so much has happened. And she found her diary and also brought Leonard to his senses, saw the orc tribe, and also learned about her friend's awakening, and also about Lionel and the gods. The girl also understands that it's not that she didn't know about their connection to her immersion in eternal sleep, but she'd better be prepared. When the girl returns to her palace, she says she doesn't want to work. She realizes that 4 years have passed since she returned from the Magic Tower, but all she did was, it just lay there, and even if the gods united with the evil spirits, it would never move from its place. Just like Pendrati, the fact that there was a small earthquake is simply evidence that he stretched sweetly in his sleep, and she knows him better than anyone. And in other words, doing anything now is a waste of time, and she will rest for the rest of her days. Well, then someone appeals to Her Highness. He apologizes for disturbing her peace, but claims it's urgent. The protagonist asks if it's really a letter, after which he sees everything. There the imperial seal says that anything but that. The woman then claims that she thinks the young lady's guess is correct, but the girl only cries out that this cannot be. And the maid asks Her Highness if she should not open it first. The girl then reaches for the letter, and when she opens it, she sees that it says that the new year has arrived and the time of calm has returned, and also learns that she is worried about the terrible news. She decides to hold a ball, and the main character realizes that social season has arrived. This is the season when single people attend daily parties to find a partner, and at these parties there's always a debutante. She was usually the exception. However, the young lady is a member of the imperial family, and it is her duty, and due to the terrible law, she also had to go out early in the morning to get a new dress. At this time, the woman asks the girl if she really doesn't like the social season, and the young lady replies that, yes, she doesn't like crowds of people either, and she also doesn't know what to talk about or with whom. And besides, she can't dance at all. Lena, shocked, then asks if the mistress can't dance, and the girl replies that she's never learned, so how could she possibly know how? The woman replies that this is true, and she has not attended any dance classes, and copes with everything perfectly, so she thought that their dances would be within her capabilities. The young lady then asks if Leanna can teach her, and the woman apologizes, but claims that the first song has already been chosen, and she doesn't know it. Afterwards, she finally realizes what she's come up with, and asks her friends who might be able to teach her dance. She also claims that Miss Whitney is a dancer, and knows all the modern dances. She also has a talent for teaching, so there shouldn't be any problem with just one song. The main character then asks if Miss Whitney will find time for her, and her interlocutor says she definitely will, because Miss Whitney is Duke Marcus's head governess. Lottie wonders who it is, after which she finally remembers this guy, and realizes that it was during the time of the first emperor. She worked as a doctor in the imperial palace, so she often met the perpetually injured Marcus, who was too clumsy for a knight. And because of this, they talked a lot. Even after she returned to Cranus, he often sent her letters, and the guy wrote there that this time he was lucky and also got hanged, and he would definitely tell her all the details when they met. The young man also claimed he had a beautiful baby boy, so he should let Jin come visit quickly. The girl realized this was his last letter, as the following year he fell into eternal sleep during the war. The woman says that Duke Marcus is currently at the estate with the prince and princess, so Miss Whitney has a lot of free time. The main character says that's a good thing, and her interlocutor claims that this is how His Grace the Duke can visit her, and the main character asks how. Her maid insists that the Duke has actually been suffering from illness for a long time, which is why Miss Whitney knows so much about medicinal herbs. The main character then wonders if this is how they met. A little while later, the girl finds herself near a simple family home and asks if they have arrived at the right address. The woman replies that yes, everything is correct, and also this store is managed by the seamstress Miller, and it is now the most famous atelier in the capital. The main character says that the atelier is overwhelmed with orders during the social season and asks if that's true, and the woman replies that she's right because she signed up 3 years ago. The main character is shocked, wondering if she really signed up 3 years ago. Meanwhile, one of the workers greets them and states that his name is Taylor Will. The guy also asks them to confirm their date of birth and personal stamp to verify the booking, after which the woman agrees. But the young lady wonders if this is really necessary. The young man then tells them to wait there. For a little while, the prophet will arrive soon, and he will bring them something to drink. The main character then asks if the woman is really so willing to give her the reservation she's been waiting for so long, and the maid replies that of course, and this is the least she can offer the lady. But the main character thinks that she is so ashamed, and she wonders if they will agree to make a second dress for Miss Selah if she pays extra. But at this time, someone else comes into the house, and the worker says that the lady cannot do this, but the girl claims that she also made a reservation at least 6 months ago, and the man claims that her turn has not yet come. Afterwards, a lady with pink hair enters the room, and the protagonist realizes it's Hermilia, then merely smirks and says, "It's been a while since she's seen Her Highness Princess Lottie." The girl also wonders what kind of meeting this was, and how Her Highness dared to accuse her then. But during the prayer ceremony, she said that she was wearing a stolen pearl necklace. The Marquise also thinks that nothing like this could have been a gift from Baron Dean, and that it was because of her that she had to sit in the mansion for a whole month, and therefore she will not leave the girl alone. The main character just looks coldly at this girl, and the Marquise then turns to Her Highness, the Princess Lottie asks if there is anything she wants to tell her. The young lady then tells her goodbye, and the girl cries out that no, and that she gave her the wrong information again. Lottie then asks what information the lady was talking about and whether she'd forgotten something. The girl then screams that she is talking about His Majesty the Emperor, and one of the men then asks the lady not to do this here, but the girl only screams that it is too noisy there. Then she pushes the worker who falls and hits the furniture. The main character watches in shock, and the lady with pink hair at this time asks how a commoner dares to interfere in the conversation of aristocrats and whether he is on an equal footing with hers. The young man then wants to say that this is so, and the girl is only interested in whether this is unfair, but they are commoners. They are under the protection of the aristocracy and live carefree, and this is not surprising.